I woke alone in the barren world of ocean survival, 20 square meters of rock where no weed could grow. The panel rating Ye hang a dead man at combat power 5. After a lifetime crowded by people for my own good, I was half relieved. Then I raised a little octopus from a bean-sized juvenile until it could drill into a blue shadow octopus many times its size and tear it open in one blink. The loner who wanted only quiet had built a world and a friend nobody could take. Like the video, hit subscribe and the next part lands in your feed automatically. Easy trade. Before any of that landed, I was nothing. Let me start there. A string of mechanical chimes went off in my ears, and an enormous virtual screen bloomed in front of me, its surface scrolling with bright lines of text. The ocean survival game had begun, the screen told me, and my player survival tips were now active. Every player would be given a completely independent island out in the ocean, 20 square meters to start, expandable and reinforceable by spending materials. I could gather resources on my own island or carry them to the trade city to buy and sell, and once I finished my basic housing construction, I could claim a teleport pass to that city. The island was mine alone, safe from interference by other players, though the screen was careful to add that it was not an absolutely safe place because marine creatures could come to disturb me at any time. The last lines were the ones that mattered. A novice protection period had switched on, 24 hours long, and the rest could be explored by the player at leisure. Then came the catch the system wanted to be sure I understood, that the novice protection period only guaranteed dangerous creatures would not appear on the island, and not that I myself was safe. Reassuring. Truly. When the mechanical voice fell silent, the huge screen shrank to a small panel about 40 centimeters wide and 30 high, a return icon blinking in the corner to take me back to an overview page. I tapped it, and the screen flipped to that overview, where I found 5 categories laid out, 4 in the corners and 1 in the center. The middle held my personal information, the top right chat and notifications, the top left my personal assets, the bottom left island construction, and the bottom right the map. I asked myself whether I had crossed over into another world, or whether this was some alien game experiment, because the briefing was thin and it amounted to one absurdly tiny island per person, forcing everyone into island construction whether they liked it or not. I looked around and confirmed how small this place really was, so small that a few steps carried me to the edge, and one more step would drop me straight into the water. I pulled my gaze back from that dangerous black-blue sea and looked down at myself instead, taking stock of a large white undershirt, loose floral shorts, and a pair of sandals. The equipment in this world had clearly been digitized, but I still thought changing a man's clothes without asking was a little presumptuous. After that small private complaint, I let my shoulders drop and my body unwind. The worry about the future was real. I would not pretend otherwise, but underneath it sat something I had not expected, a quiet sense of relief at having left my old world behind. My name is Ye Hang, 19 years old, 183 centimeters tall, gentle-looking and in good health. I had not come from a good family, and for as long as I could remember, I had survived by reading the faces of the people around me, because if I upset the wrong one, I went hungry. Once the law put me in school, the library became the one place I loved, only because it was quiet there. At 16, I left school and went out to work, and over 3 years I drifted through several cities and learned how different regions lived, never once managing to truly fit in among people. I disliked having anyone press too close, and I hated most of all the ones who took my quietness as an invitation, who insisted it was for my own good, who pretended to be deaf and blind to every refusal and kept dragging me into the crowd anyway. So as I stood on this scrap of land in the middle of nowhere, I wondered, almost amused, whether my old dream of escaping crowds and forced company had finally come true. The panel filled in my own details for me, and I read them as my situation rather than a list of numbers. I was Island Master number 9911, the man called Ye Hang, with a combat power of 5, rated as a healthy adult. My island ran 20 square meters, flagged as extremely barren, a tiny patch where not even a weed could grow. My inventory held 10 slots and all of them said empty, and for equipment I had the attributeless novice 3-piece set on my back. My combat power was decent and my body checked out healthy, which I supposed were the 2 bright spots, because the island itself, reading as tiny and barren and unable to grow so much as a weed, was frankly a little miserable. I tapped return and opened the map. The island came up as a 3-dimensional model I could zoom in and out of and rotate however I liked, and on its surface a little white figure marked where I was standing right now. A small legend nearby explained the icons, the miniature houses, the supply crate markers, the separate symbols for trees, herbs, shrubs, fruits, grains, ores, and animals, none of which I had any of, because besides me the island carried only a thin skin of topsoil. Beneath that soil layer, all of 2 or 3 centimeters thick, lay the basic island foundation, and that could neither be planted on nor mined. No resources to start with then, but a prompt in the bottom corner of the map promised the supplies would refresh. They came at 4 times every day, 6 in the morning, noon, 6 in the evening, and midnight. And in each of those windows the island would refresh and leave behind at least 1 resource or supply crate. I had arrived at 11 in the morning, a handful of minutes had already slipped by, and the first refresh was now less than an hour away. I closed the map and opened island construction to see what I could actually build. The cheapest option was area expansion, 1 square meter for 2 units of soil and 5 of stone. After that came island reinforcement, a cubic meter for 10 soil, 3 wheat and 3 sawdust. Housing construction offered a level 1 wooden house for 100 wood, 10 straw rope, and 2 grass mat, or a level 1 stone house for 100 stone, 10 soil, 4 wooden plank, and 2 grass mat. Last was defense construction, a level 1 fence for 1 wood and 1 straw rope. I stood there in the middle of my island looking at all of it and owning the materials for exactly none of it. The expansion needed the fewest materials, though the catch was that any new patch came out exactly as barren as the rest, a dead surface where nothing would grow. Island reinforcement, as the panel described it, hardened the existing foundation up to level 1, and the reinforced ground gained defense, durability, and a chance for a resource level to appear on top. The wooden house and the stone house were both level 1 buildings that differed only in material, so the choice came down to what I had on hand and what I preferred. Either way, the house was a 4-meter box, 2 meters to a side, square walls of stone or wood, a pointed roof of wooden plank, and a grass mat draped over it to keep out wind and rain. The fence was a 1-meter protective barrier per unit, wooden plank 10 centimeters wide, and a centimeter thick standing a meter high, wrapped in straw rope with small gaps left between, and I could place it on any open ground on the island. None of it was happening on an empty island, so I closed the construction page and switched to personal assets. That just showed me the model of my current island again, plus the barren area readout already listed in my personal information. Nothing new. Once I had reviewed everything I could see and was satisfied I understood it, I finally opened the chat interface. I had braced myself for a wall of messages from a planet's worth of players, but instead the channel only ticked over 1 message every few seconds. The reason sat printed across the top, that each player got 1 free message a day with a limit of 50 characters, and anything over that drained ocean crystal stones by how many messages and characters I burned. Those crystal stones, the notice added, might turn up in level 2 or higher supply crates and might drop when I killed a marine creature. Reading that, I understood the comment once. It was not that everyone was reasonable, it was that most players were too afraid of the cost to post at all, or had already spent their 1 free line and now sat in silence. The player count printed beside the channel name made me stop. More than 19 billion. I counted it, then counted it again to be sure, and it still came out to a number several times larger than the entire population of the world I used to live in. That many people, and the feed still moved 1 quiet line at a time. The messages themselves were the same shape over and over, each person describing what they had been doing the instant they were pulled in. Somebody was bored out of their mind on a restricted, empty island and asked where everyone hailed from. Somebody else hit the character limit mid-sentence and picked it up in a second line, naming their home and hunting for anyone nearby. One was driving at a construction site and woke up here the moment they got in the car. Another was printing documents during late overtime. Another had just stood up from a blind date to go see a movie when the world swapped out beneath them. And one had simply been called on by a teacher to solve a problem in class. I scrolled and never found a single person trying to reach family or friends, only people venting feeling and worry, plenty of it laced with anger. Every player in the channel was nothing more than a string of numbers, no names, no profile pictures. There was no way to add friends and no way to view another player's information. When I scrolled back through the history, I found only the most recent 100 messages survived, each new one shoving the oldest off the end into nothing. Noon arrived, and a notification dropped onto the chat interface as a mechanical voice spoke in my ear, telling me the island resources had refreshed. My luck did not seem too bad, because 2 supply crates had appeared, one on my left and one on my right. The screen shrank to the size of my palm and floated up over my shoulder the moment I looked away from it. And since the island was so small, there was no searching to do. The crates were simply there. They were long crates of low-quality wooden plank gone grayish-black, and when I looked closer, the gray and black turned out to be mold spotting the wood. Ugly, but ugly did not matter on a supply crate, because a bad shell did not mean bad contents. I squatted and opened the first 1 for 3 soil, 3 stone, 10 wood, 10 weed, 1 bread, and 1 water. The items dropping straight into my inventory while the rotten shell vanished. A decent spread of types, but thin on quantity. The second crate gave 8 soil, 10 stone. 8 wood, 9 weed, 2 bread, and 1 water, the same goods with a slightly heavier haul. Even both crates stacked together left a yawning gap between what I had and what a house demanded. I pulled out a piece of bread to try, a palm-sized lump, solid and heavy, and the first bite came back dry, hard, and flavorless. The water was a 500 milliliter bottle, and the instant I cracked the cap, a 6-hour countdown appeared. The bottle set to vanish whether I finished it or not. The same disposable trick the supply crate had pulled, the container refreshing itself out of existence the moment it was opened. I left the materials alone for now and went back to the chat channel. Someone had pulled 40 units of wood but no straw rope or grass mat to do anything with it. And someone else was asking what sawdust even was, because they wanted to perform an island fortification and had wood but no sawdust. Where there were questions, there were answers. And after watching a while, I had the gist of it. So I took 1 unit of weed out of my inventory, a meter-tall handful of grass, and the moment it was in my hand, a small translucent prompt box opened in front of me. The weed registered as a level 1 material, and level 1 materials, it said, could undergo simple processing. I tapped the blinking simple processing line, and 3 options unfolded. 2 units of weed crafted into 1 straw rope, and 20 units of weed worked into a single grass mat. I put the weed away and drew a unit of wood instead, an unprocessed dry log 2 meters tall and 20 centimeters across, and its processing options offered me 1 wood ground into 2 sawdust, or 2 wood pressed into 1 wooden plank. The sawdust made obvious sense. Grind it up and you have shavings, but I genuinely could not work out how 2 whole logs collapsed into 1 wooden plank. Maybe the wood went to sawdust first and got pressed flat into a board. Either way, I decided I should stop staring and actually do something. I had 10 soil to spare, plenty of weed, and only needed 3 sawdust, so I planned to perform 1 cubic meter of fortification first. I ran simple processing on 2 pieces of wood, 4 sawdust appeared, and with 11 soil, 19 weed, and 4 sawdust on hand against requirements of 10, 3 and 3. I was clear. I picked a spot near the southern edge, tapped my finger to it through the island interface, and a square 3-dimensional marker locked into place. The panel confirmed the level 1 fortification complete, 1 cubic meter defense plus 10, fertility at level 1, with a chance for weeds or small trees to grow on that ground. The soil there thickened and settled, the loose drifting dust turning into real basic soil. I sat down beside the patch that might sprout grass, went back to watching the chat, and jotted down anything useful while I waited. After more than half an hour, sprouts broke the soil, the prompt naming them weed seedlings ready to be gathered in 1 hour. The weed did not even need planting, it grew on its own and harvested in an hour, which I liked. I watched 1 come up, then a second, then a third, and before the first had finished, a dozen had pushed through. 12 weeds filling that single square meter. The fortification was a 1 cubic meter cube underneath, but the part I could touch was only the 1 meter surface, the rest being buried defense the island would call on whenever sea creatures attacked. A little excited despite myself, I kept reading the channel and let the hour pass. When the panel finally flagged the first weed as level 1 and mature, I reached out, gripped it by the roots, and pulled it free with a small tug. Weed plus 1, gathering experience plus 1, and the moment that experience registered, my personal level information unlocked. The panel now listed 4 levels under my name: hunting at level 0, fishing at level 0, gathering at level 0 with 1 experience of 100, and planting at level 0, every one of them starting from scratch. No one in the channel had mentioned these yet, and I doubted that was because no one had found them. More likely the ones who knew did not want to share it, or had already burned their 1 daily message, and could not say more. 11 weeds still stood in that square meter. They had not matured in unison, so I watched for whichever was ready and pulled them 1 at a time. 12 experience, and 12 units of weed in total. And after a half-hour cooldown, a new crop sprouted in the same ground. I had no soil left for another fortification, so I just stood watch over the single patch, finishing a full crop roughly every 2 hours. From noon to 6 in the evening, the count of weeds that came up each cycle was random, and I harvested 39 all told for 39 gathering experience. 6 in the evening, and the island refreshed again. In the very spot I had just stripped of weed, a small tree had appeared out of nowhere. A clean-looking wooden supply crate sitting at its base, and 2 more of the grayish-black crates had refreshed on the empty ground elsewhere. I opened the 2 ugly ones first and pulled basic supplies as expected, then went back to the tree and lifted the clean wooden crate. It was a level 2 supply crate, and the difference was night and day. A felling axe, a piece of flint, 28 soil, 53 stone, 40 wood, 46 weed, 2 jam-filled bread, 6 berries, and 3 water poured into my hands. The felling axe was an axe for cutting trees with a durability of 100, each swing against a tree costing 1 to 3 durability and other materials draining it by their toughness. The flint was a level 2 special ore that might be needed to craft weapons and could be combined with iron ore into a flint lighter. The berries were a level 1 fruit off a common bush, edible raw or processed as an ingredient, and the jam-filled bread was sliced bread with jam added for a better taste. I checked the new items, tucked them back into my slots, and carried the axe to the small tree the panel said I could fell. I swung at the trunk near the ground, the axe biting in, and got 1 wood and 1 gathering experience for it. I checked my slots and saw the wood had gone up by 1, then looked back at the tree, which carried a single notch and yet stood there exactly as before, and I just blinked at it. I had assumed a unit of wood meant a whole log, since this little tree was the same 20 centimeters across. But here I had taken the wood and the tree still wanted cutting. Finding that more amusing than frustrating, I kept swinging, stroke after stroke, wooden experience ticking up with each, until after 15 units of wood the tree vanished all at once and a pile of branches dropped at my feet. My 10 inventory slots were already full, so the branches simply scattered on the ground, and when I picked one up to look, I understood it was the crown coming down after the trunk was gone. The branch was a level 1 material, processable into 1 portion of sawdust or burnable as fuel. Nothing remarkable next to wood, but useful enough. A glance at my panel showed combat power still at 5, gathering now at level 0, with 59 of 100, all 10 slots crammed with flint, soil, stone, wood, weed, bread, water, sawdust, jam-filled bread, and berries. The axe in my hand, the loose branches on the dirt. Still 5 wood short of a small wooden hut, and with no refresh due I had no way around it. So I ground the 5 branches into 5 sawdust and stored them. Then I opened island reinforcement again and hardened another 2 cubic meters beside the first patch, which ate 20 soil, 6 weed, and 6 sawdust, clearing the sawdust out and freeing a slot. I put the axe away. No creature was coming onto this speck of an island for now. All I had to do was watch the clock and harvest the wild weed every couple of hours. It was past 7:50 and the sky had gone full dark, the waves breaking around me carrying strange noises from things moving in the sea. With 3 patches of grass growing ground now, this batch gave me 31 weeds and 31 experience. And after pulling them, I sat cross-legged on the dirt to take a short nap. My eyes had barely closed when a different sprout poked up from one of the patches, a tree this time, and through the night its trunk and branches twisted up fast. The rustle of leaves in the wind woke me, the round moon just lifting into the eastern sky, and I looked at the level 1 small tree under that cold light and smiled, because a tree meant wood, and enough wood meant a house. Even with the novice protection period running, sitting on a scrap this small with the waves and the sea things hissing all around, still left me feeling exposed, and I wanted walls. The tree took the same span the weeds did to grow, and only one could stand on a single square meter. By 9:30 it had hit its limit and turned harvestable, so I swung the axe and the first wood dropped into my slot. For the house that was almost mine I chopped away gladly, and after 11 wood the tree disappeared, leaving 3 scattered branches behind. My house. Finally, I stopped fussing over experience and leveling and got the materials ready. 2 weed made 1 straw rope and I needed 10, so 20 weed, and 20 weed made 1 grass mat and I needed 2. So another 40 and I had weed to spare. With 106 wood, 10 straw rope, and 2 grass mat against requirements of 110 and 2, the level 1 wooden house was finally buildable. The 3 reinforced patches had defense, but I was reluctant to give them up to a house, so I opened the construction interface and tapped the blueprint down on the open ground to the north instead, a box only 4 square meters across. The dust cleared, and there it stood, a square wooden house 2 meters to a side, a grass mat draped over its peaked roof, facing south. A single wall being only 2 meters wide, the wooden door took up half of it, a flimsy thing a meter wide and 2 meters tall, with a small window beside it half a meter wide and a meter high. The basic house was built, and the panel told me a novice gift pack had been issued, since my inventory had no room. A small red box tied with a yellow ribbon dropped straight into my hand. I opened the novice gift pack, and my island instantly piled up with goods. My inventory slots went up by 2, a Trade City teleport pass and 10 ocean crystal stones landing in the 2 new spaces. And then came 4 processing tables, each 2 meters long, 1 wide and a meter and a half high, a semi-finished product table, an equipment table, a furniture table, and a food table. They scattered as they spawned, mostly onto the island but a few hanging out over the open water, and the sight of them teetering over the sea sent me straight into the construction menu to expand my island in a hurry. Soil and stone were no problem, 23 and 86 against requirements of 2 and 5. So with no time to deliberate, I expanded 10 units at once, a 10 square meter semicircle, and the processing tables were safe. Lesson learned. Next time I open a gift pack, I clear inventory space first. I set a few things down inside the house, then went out and gathered all 4 processing tables, nudging them into position in a ring around the building. Once they were arranged, I finally pulled the weed from the 2 remaining patches, 21 weeds and 21 experience. My gathering experience had reached 125 of 100 now, so I tapped the item and chose to upgrade. Gathering rose to level 1, combat power +1, the bar resetting to 25 of 200. The upgrade took 1 click, but the moment it landed my body changed with it, and when I took the felling axe and swung, I could feel the speed and strength in it. My hearing and sight sharper too. The combat power had only climbed by a single point, but I had started with just 5, so that 1 point was a fifth of everything I had, and the cost was that the experience needed for the next jump had doubled. Time to see what these tables could actually make, and I went down the line of them one at a time. The semi-finished product table held the basics for now. Straw rope, grass mat, turf, sawdust, wooden plank, wooden stick, stone brick, pebbles, and stone slab, with anything further locked behind recipes I would have to find. The equipment table offered straw shoes, straw hat, grass basket, fishing rod, and wooden stick. The furniture table a single wooden plank bed and a straw mat. The food table jam and jam bread. Everything on display was made from level 1 materials, the starter recipes bundled with the tables. And from here on, whether for equipment or even semi-finished goods, I would have to learn the right recipe before crafting anything new. A bed first, even a plain wooden plank one, since anything beats sleeping on the floor, and the furniture all carried bonus effects. The wooden plank bed wanted 5 wooden plank and 2 straw rope over 10 minutes, and resting on it gave a 5% boost to physical stamina recovery. The trouble was wood. 2 wood per plank and only 6 wood in my slots, so the bed had to wait until I gathered more. I looked over my novice 3-piece set instead. It was not cold here, but the big undershirt, big shorts, and floppy slippers were genuinely awful. Straw shoes were within reach. 50 weed and a 3-minute craft for movement speed +1. Defense +1 when worn, and a durability of 100, so I had 75 weed and crafted them without hesitation. While they cooked, I read through the rest. There was almost nothing I could make yet, especially in weapons, only a wooden stick, and that wanted 10 wood I did not have. The fishing rod and fish basket were fishing tools, but the level 1 fishing rod called for coarse thread I had not seen anywhere. 3 minutes later the craft finished, and at the equipment table the straw shoes floated above the surface wrapped in a ball of light. I took them, the panel naming them level 1 equipment. Speed +1, durability 100. I squeezed them in my hands, the weave rough but the finished texture honestly decent, then set them down, pulled my feet from the slippers, and put them on. The instant both feet were in, the slippers refreshed and disappeared like every other piece of packaging, and the new shoes were so much better that I hopped in place a few times, just to feel them. I confirmed the beginner equipment would always vanish the moment it was swapped, so I stopped worrying about losing the set, already looking forward to making a bed once the midnight refresh handed me wood, and wondering if it would feel as good to lie on as the shoes felt to wear. I went back to the chat channel and watched the others talk, and just before midnight I pulled the 28 weeds that had grown in the dirt. Weed and experience credited, the clock reading 8 minutes to 12. Their channel was lively. Sitting against the rough plank wall outside the house, I watched the feed start to race as midnight closed in, scrolling too fast to read before it shot off the top, so I gave up on it for the moment. I opened my inventory instead and found the 2 gift pack items I had forgotten to inspect, while I was busy hauling tables around. The ocean crystal stone was a transparent teardrop crystal, energy drawn from the ocean and the common currency of Trade City, and I turned it over once and put it away. The other was a card the size of the identification card I used to carry, a city map on the front, a full-body projection of myself on the back beside my player number. The Trade City Teleport Pass, a unique item, let me use its teleport function to enter Trade City for 10 ocean crystal stones, with no cost to teleport back to the island. So the pass was a portable teleporter, and I could jump to Trade City right now if I wanted. I did not want to, and could not afford to anyway. I had only 10 crystal stones, and going would just be to barter with other players, but my materials were still thin, and I could not yet say what I needed most. Midnight, and the 3 patches I had cleared 10 minutes earlier sprouted instantly, 2 with small trees and 1 with 8 weeds. 3 supply crates came with this refresh, 1 level 1 on the ground and 2 level 2 perched on my roof and on the semi-finished processing table. Of course they spawned on the roof. Why not? I took out a piece of wood, knocked the crate off the roof so it dropped to the ground, and opened it first, finding a pickaxe inside along with 20 soil, 33 stone, 61 wood, 45 weed, 2 bread, and 3 water. No ore had refreshed on my island yet, so I set the pickaxe inside the house. The level 2 crate on the processing table was generous. 6 ocean crystal stones, a level 1 fishing rod, 3 level 1 bait, 30 soil, 48 stone, 26 wood, 39 weed, 5 bread, and 4 water, and the level 1 crate on the ground held only the usual basics. With no room in my slots, I put the fishing rod in the house too. My inventory now carried the pass, 16 ocean crystal stones, the flint, 3 level 1 bait, 58 soil, 102 to 2 stone, 102 wood, 144 weed, 13 bread, 16 water, 2 jam-filled bread, and 6 berries, every slot full again. I ate a jam-filled bread and a bottle of water until I was full, then went to chop trees. The 3 patches gave me 22 wood, 7 branch, and 8 weed, and with the patches cleared, I set up the single wooden plank bed first. 5 wooden plank and 2 straw rope, which cost 10 wood and 4 weed to process, and would need another 10 minutes to finish. While it cooked, I pulled materials. 20 soil and 50 stone expanded the island to 40 square meters, leaving me 38 soil. I could have pushed the area further, but to actually develop I knew I could not chase size alone. I had to raise quality too, so with 38 soil, plenty of weed, and 9 sawdust ground from 7 branches, and a log, I reinforced 3 more cubic meters on top of the existing foundation, because only level 1 reinforced ground would refresh plants and pay out gathering experience and materials at all. By the time everything was adjusted, the bed was done, stamina recovery plus 5% when resting on it, durability a low 30. I ate a jam-filled bread, carried the bed inside, and set it against the wooden wall where it fit perfectly at 60 centimeters wide and a full 2 meters long. The planks were still rough, so I crafted a straw mat to go with it. 100 weed over 3 minutes for a mattress that added another 5% to stamina recovery. 3 minutes later, I spread the mat on the bed and lay down. And the difference the moment my back touched it was real. And I could not sleep. I had figured I would drop off fast, but my body relaxed while my brain stayed wide awake, restless and oddly energized. Since lying there was useless, I opened the channel again and just read in the dark. Even one message per person kept it lively. The lucky ones, the players the rest were already calling European emperors, were being told to stop showing off, while the poor masses could not scrape together 100 wood. One person had a single level 1 crate at a time, and just 26 wood total, and wanted to know how long a house was supposed to take. Someone confirmed reinforced island ground grew weeds or small trees after half an hour idle. Someone had reinforced 2 plots and gotten ore piles they could not mine without a pickaxe. Someone had the pickaxe but no ore piles, and a string of the lucky ones bragged about cabins, 50 square meters of area, and 5 reinforced plots. I watched it scroll and slowly went drowsy, thinking, just before sleep took me, that maybe my own luck was not so bad either. I slept 1 hour and 3 minutes. Up past 1:40, I grabbed the axe and opened the door, and the 3 small trees and the weed across 3 patches were enough to make the salty night breeze feel almost good, because you needed a foundation first before you could pull more out of this place. The chopping rang out, wood filling my slot, then the branches, then the weed. 6 patches yielding 23 wood, 11 branch, 31 weed, and 65 gathering experience for 1 wave. My gathering sat at 155 now, 45 short of the next level. The axe had little durability left, so I went back in, shut the door, lay down, and dropped off fast this time. I woke again half an hour on, saw the time, and went back to sleep. Around 3:40 I climbed up and cleared the weed off all 6 patches quick. 59 weed and 59 experience, and that filled gathering to 214 of 200. Gathering leveled up to level 2, combat power +1. The bar resetting to 14 of 400, the next climb steeper again. With no alarm clock and no wish to miss a harvest, I lay back down. From early morning to just before 6 my sleep came in pieces. A harvest at 1:50, another at 3:40, another at 5:30. At 5:30 I pulled 33 wood, 10 branch, and 25 weed, and the axe finally died, the small tree left full of cracks but stubbornly standing, until I kicked it down. Trees knocked over by foot still paid out materials, though under normal conditions you could never bring one down that way, unless it was already chopped to the last stage. By then the sky had begun to brighten, and I did not lie back down. 6 in the morning, and the orange-red sun climbed the eastern horizon as a new round of supplies refreshed. Among the 6 patches, one held a pile of stones over half a meter high. My first ore pile, marked as level 1 and requiring an iron pickaxe to gather. I left it for the moment and opened the crates first. 2 this morning, 1 level 1 and 1 level 2. The level 1 gave the usual basics, and the level 2 was rich. 5 ocean crystal stones, a felling axe, 1 coarse thread, 21 soil, 42 stone, 44 wood, 35 weed, 10 berries, and 2 water. Crystal stones were good luck, and so were the axe and the coarse thread. But what I wanted most right then was the soil, because with 35 more I could reinforce 3 more cubic meters of the island's volume. Not just for the surface to grow plants, but for the whole island's safety, since this foundation layer was the only thing I could actually reinforce. 30 soil, 9 weed, and 9 sawdust later. The new reinforcement was done, and I finally started gathering. I pulled the weed, chopped the small trees, and swung the iron pickaxe into the ore pile. Across the 6 patches I took 18 weed, 38 wood, 13 branch, 9 stones out of the ore pile, and 2 iron ore. Iron ore was a level 2 material with a chance to appear in a level 1 ore pile. Luck depended in the end. And the higher an item's quality grade, the more experience it paid. Level 2 iron ore giving 5 each, so those 2 were 10 on their own, and with everything else this wave came to 88 gathering experience. The novice protection period showed a little over 5.5 hours left on its countdown, since I had entered this world at 11 in the morning. I sat down with bread and water for breakfast. The sandwich bread already gone from the night before, so it was the chewy plain loaf in one hand and water in the other, as I walked to the edge of the island. The sea breeze carried its salt, and the water that had crashed all night lay calm now in the daylight. As far as I could see there was nothing but ocean, and I ate slowly, wondering whether all the players shared one sea or whether each of us sat in our own separate space, untouched by the rest. After a few blank minutes staring at the water, a chat post about someone landing a good material while fishing gave me an idea. I had never actually fished, but the post about a level 2 material pulled from the sea had others chiming in with tips, and with nothing else to do, I was willing enough to try. The level 1 fishing rod could be used for fishing, caught level 1 to level 2 items, ate 1 bait per cast, and had a durability of 10, which by those players' accounts meant 10 casts before it broke. I only had 3 baits, so the durability did not worry me yet. I spent 50 weed to make a grass basket, which was just a level 1 fish basket, then took the rod and bait to the edge, hooked the bait, and cast the line into the seawater. The rod was crude, a 2-meter slender pole with a piece of coarse thread tied to the tip, and a small hook on the far end. A wooden ball threaded onto the line a hand's width above the hook for a float. Crude meant weak at luring fish, so I sat there a dull half hour, watching the channel without losing track of the water. The float twitched, the rod gave a faint pull, and I flicked my wrist and yanked the catch up. Fishing successful, the panel said. Ocean's gift +1, fishing experience +1, I looked at the small glass bottle now sitting in my grass basket and wondered if somebody out here was actually playing message in a bottle, but since it counted as an ocean's gift, I figured I would open it. I kicked up the 10-centimeter glass bottle, pulled the stopper, and tipped out the rolled paper inside, the bottle vanishing as I took hold of a palm-sized note. The note was a survival tip, telling me to hurry and expand my island's area because at 100 square meters, my island's safety would gain a new enhancement. The writing broke into individual characters and flew into the virtual screen, the chat interface switching itself over to the game notification category, where a bookmark icon appeared, and clicking it pulled up a fresh list holding just this one gift. 100 square meters then. It seemed certain development milestones had to be reached before I could enter a new stage. I hooked the bait back on and cast again, marveling to myself that this world even built hints into its growth, and waited over 10 minutes before the float sank. Fishing successful, small crab +1, fishing experience +1. Inside the basket, a small crab no bigger than a fingertip crawled back and forth, unable to climb out no matter how it tried. A small crab was a level 1 marine creature that could be made into food or processed into bait, the panel told me. And tiny as it was, anything I could catch had some use, though I had no idea how many of these it would take to fill a plate. I had no recipe to cook it and no formula to turn it into bait yet, so I left it where it was. With my last bait on the hook, I cast once more, and this time I waited until the weed in the dirt had nearly matured before the float finally sank. Fishing successful, level 2 flower pot +1, fishing experience +5. A round flower pot 20 centimeters deep and 30 across, bigger than the grass basket itself, appeared right on the basket's rim. This ocean really was rich, handing out a tip, a crab, and now a flower pot. And remembering the players who claimed they had fished up supply crates and stones, I could only conclude that in this world anything was possible. The flower pot could hold level 2 soil and once filled could be used to plant level 1 to level 2 plants, which told me planting here would likely demand exactly this kind of item, even if I had no idea yet where level 2 soil came from. Good stuff, whatever it turned out to be. All 3 baits spent, I carried everything back into the house. With no formula, I left the small crab in the grass basket, which said it could keep a creature alive for 24 hours, and I set the flower pot in the corner with the rest. Then I went back out to pull weed and chop wood, with 9 patches now able to grow plants. Maybe ore piles too. The haul beat anything before. 2 trees, 24 wood, 5 branch, and 69 weed across 7 patches. 97 experience in all. Once I had tidied that up, I looked at my materials in the channel chatter and decided to use the time to visit Trade City. I still had novice protection left and had just finished a round of gathering, so I had room to get back before 11. Pass in hand, I chose to teleport, and 10 ocean crystal stones dropped from my inventory as the world swapped out in an instant. With no discomfort at all, around me stood a city of more than a dozen massive buildings, and a sweep of scenic landscapes. Everywhere I looked, there were players and novice sets, some greeting strangers with too much enthusiasm, some watching cautiously, some wide-eyed and curious whether any of it was real. And I felt much the same, but I had no time to loiter. I walked straight along the direction my map gave me and found the tallest, largest building of all, the trade market, climbing the dozen-odd steps and passing through the main gate into a front hall vaster than some city park squares I had stood in. The moment I crossed the threshold, a mechanical prompt told me a first-time player needed identity binding, a translucent screen rising in front of me with everything already labeled, asking only for my finger to confirm. Once I did, the system announced that Island Master number 9911 had arrived at the trade market for the first time, and that I could now check my location on the map along with all public information about the place. The screen shifted into a detailed trade market map, and wherever my gaze settled, a label for that spot bloomed open. The trade market had 9 floors, and to climb the stairs to a higher one, a player had to spend a set amount inside the market, the only restriction I could currently see being the stairs to the second floor, which demanded 10,000 ocean crystal stones of spending. The first floor split into 6 areas, the largest being the hall I stood in, with 5 great gates around it leading to the sales area, the recycling area, the appraisal area, the auction area, and the stall area, each described on the map. The sales area was the market's own item shop, its stock refreshing every hour, paid for in crystal stones, the items random, the quantities random, the prices just as random, and once a thing sold out, I would have to wait for the next refresh. The recycling area let players trade items for crystal stones at 70% of the last 3 days' average auction price, a low rate for anyone too desperate to wait. The appraisal area charged crystal stones to identify unknown items by their level, with a pointed note that a high-level item would not necessarily prove valuable once appraised. The auction area let players auction items at a starting price the area generated by scanning, for a duration the seller chose. The longer the listing, the higher the fee. And the stall area let players rent 1 cubic meter stalls for crystal stones to set up their own exchanges, either paying for a hosting service or standing the stall themselves to negotiate prices in person. I read the map and walked straight into the stall area. The auction area was convenient, but nobody had many crystal stones yet, and what I needed was soil, a basic expansion material, so a stall suited me better. Through the gate stood rows upon rows of partitioned stalls, each only a cubic meter 2-meter paths running between the rows, busy with people coming and going but not yet crowded. The shouting hit me first. Sellers hawking soil at 1 crystal stone a portion, buyers calling for wood and any material going, others bawling for fish and bait and shrimp and crabs and every kind of meat, even bugs. The one mercy was the rules of the place. No fighting allowed and no getting too close to another player. And though the noise gave me a headache, I was deeply grateful for the setting that kept people out of arm's reach, which suited me better than it would have suited almost anyone. With half an hour left before I had to be back, I checked the stalls near the gate one by one. Someone was selling 100 wood at 2 weed per wood, someone selling 200 weed at 1 wood per weed, someone offering 3 iron ore at 50 wood or 50 weed each, someone buying 100 wood and paying 10 wood for a soil, weed, or stone, someone buying 30 soil and giving 5 wood, weed, or stone per soil, someone selling 3 level 1 bait at 2 soil each. Each stall could post at most 2 buy or sell lines and set up to 3 exchange items. And after a while I had the rough rates. 1 soil running about 7 of wood, weed, or stone, with a few people pricing things absurdly low but most just taking the middle. Passing an empty stall, I saw the rental terms: 2 buy or sell slots for 1 crystal stone an hour, materials returned automatically when the time ran out, and a hosting mode for 1 more crystal stone an hour that mailed sold goods to the owner and mailed unsold ones back at the end. If I sold in person, items returned to my inventory at the close, and if my inventory was full, they would be held at the stall area gate for a paid pickup, the fee rising the longer they sat. Anything not collected within 3 days simply recycled. The world clearly did not want players using the stalls as free storage, since with limited slots someone would otherwise be tempted to stash goods here forever. A dozen minutes to 11, so I rented a stall, 1 crystal stone deducted on the spot. I wanted soil and nothing else, so I set both lines to buying soil, one buying 40 soil at 7 wood each, the other buying 36 soil at 7 weed each, putting the wood and weed up separately so the stall would not shut down halfway, because one material ran dry. Even if all the wood went, the weed could keep the stall running. With the exchange prices set, 280 wood and 252 weed left my inventory at once, and I set 1 hour of hosting, 2 crystal stones total, then turned and walked out of the trade market and activated the teleport home from the gate. At 11 sharp the announcements came. The novice protection period had ended, and the ocean survival game had officially begun. Marine life free to attack at any time. The system telling me to strengthen my island foundation, expand my area, ready my weapons, and struggle to survive in this endless sea. That danger was approaching, and I had no other choice. Comforting as always. I stood on the island, which looked exactly the same, and looked out at the sea, and it was quiet as before. A soft breeze and not even a wave. The channel told a different story. Plenty of players already reporting attacks, fish gnawing at their foundation stone, octopus tentacles hauling themselves up onto islands, fish in the water spitting at people. I held a wooden stick, a level 1 weapon, blunt damage +1, weapon strength +1, durability 100, that I had crafted before setting up at Trade City and taken in hand on my return. And I looked around to confirm there was no danger before going back to the front of the house. The threat was clearly random then, and spawned where it pleased. Just as I had decided nothing was coming, an attack notification popped. The island foundation on the east side under assault. I carried the stick over and found a large crab at the edge of the foundation, waving its claws, climbing up, jabbing at the stone of my island. The panel named it a level 1 sea crab, health 100, one of the more common creatures in the ocean. Its claws dangerous, and now it had set its sights on my island. It was grayish, its shell larger than a fist, and where it had climbed up I could see a few small scratches scored into the foundation. Not broken yet, but if I let it keep knocking, that stone might well take damage and vanish. I did not bother with the stick. I took out a branch, tested its weight, crouched, slipped it under the crab, and scooped sharply upward, flinging the thing that had been knocking on my foundation more than 10 meters into the air before it could strike again. It fell from that height and smashed onto the barren surface, only shallow topsoil and stone to land on, and a red -100 flashed over it. Killed level 1 sea crab, the panel read. Hunting experience +1, level 1 crab claw +2, level 1 crab shell +1. So it actually worked. I had assumed killing it at the edge would just knock it into the sea, and that gathering from a carcass would be near impossible out in the water. But instead the fall itself had done the job. Branch in one hand, stick in the other, I looked at the claws and shells scattered on the dirt, gathered them up, and went to put them in the house, since my inventory was still full and the drops had landed on the ground rather than in a slot. Counting as an attack, this also let me lean against the wall and open the map to check my island, where I could see the crack in the foundation had not closed, and a scratch mark now sat above the spot. The initial island foundation, the panel explained, could not have its damage repaired directly, but the damage would clear automatically when the area was reinforced. With no level, it could not be repaired, so I had to wait for reinforcement and a second attack before then would carry the existing damage forward and break the stone faster. I closed the map and went to gather, the weed already mature. Weed, wood, branch, and after clearing all 9 plots, I had 111 gathering experience. 33 wood, 7 branch, and 71 weed. I had just ground the branch into sawdust when a notification came. An email from Trade City that extracted its contents automatically when I opened it. 76 soil. The items I had been buying at the market had all traded, the message said, and the stall had ended. The soil I wanted had sold out in under an hour, so the stall closed early, and looking at the 81 soil now in my inventory, I decided to wait, to let the noon resources refresh before choosing whether to expand or to reinforce, since noon was not far off. As the notification cleared, I looked at the 4 chest icons on the map and could not keep the smile off my face. 4 supply crates, 2 level 1 and 2 level 2. The first level 2 gave 8 ocean crystal stones, a flint, 31 soil, 36 stone, 42 wood, 42 weed, 1 jam-filled bread, 2 berries and 1 water. The second level 2 excited me far more, because it held a level 1 bait recipe and a level 1 storage box recipe, exactly what I needed, alongside its soil, stone, wood, weed, and water. I used both recipes at once, then opened the 2 level 1 crates for another 18 soil, 23 stone, 25 wood, 35 weed, 2 bread, and 2 water. My inventory now ran the pass: 19 ocean crystal stones, the coarse thread, 149 soil, 217 stone, 138 wood, 194 weed, 1 jam-filled bread, 15 bread, 23 water, 18 berries, and 37 sawdust. The earlier iron ore and the flint that had spilled on the ground both went into the house. Looking at all that soil and the 3 ore piles freshly refreshed, 100 square meters of island did not seem so hard after all. The iron pickaxe burned durability fast. I had mined 3 ore piles with it, and it was down to 6 points, and I was certain that if more ore piles came, I would be stuck without one, because the trees I could kick over once they were notched to pieces, but an ore pile would not give me a single stone if I tried to pry it with my hands. The 3 piles had paid 33 stones and 3 iron ore, that and the rest coming to 48 gathering experience. After clearing them, there were still 2 trees and 4 weed plots nearby, and cutting and pulling those gave 20 wood, 5 branch, 46 weed, and 71 gathering experience. I opened the construction list. My island sat at 40 square meters and needed 60 more to reach 100, and I had soil to spare but still came up 10 square meters short of stone. Even short, I decided to expand first, figuring it would balance out after I opened the supply crates that night. And after less than a minute of hesitation, I chose to expand the area by 50 square meters at once. 100 soil and 250 stones spent, the island stretching out. 90 square meters was only larger by comparison though, and in plain terms it was still no great expanse. I admit I am a little obsessive. If there are resources, I want every last one of them, and if there are materials, I want to spend them making my home safer. I wandered the edge of the newly expanded island with my wooden stick, grumbling about having nothing to do, half hoping some cultivation system might turn up to fill the dead hours, then went to the processing table to check the 2 recipes from the crate. Bait was made at the food processing table, and the level 1 bait recipe took 1 level 1 marine creature limb part, fish caught in the sea or a kill drop both working. I had 1 small crab, 2 crab claw, and 1 crab shell at home, so I carried them over and crafted 4 slightly different portions of bait. I wanted to go fishing, but was in no rush, so I stepped to the furniture table for the other recipe. The level 1 storage box took 100 wood over 10 seconds, a 1x1 box with a built-in 6-slot storage cabinet, each slot holding up to 999 of an item. And as a household storage tool, it was something I badly needed, so with 158 wood on hand, I made it on the spot and set it inside the house. 5 iron ore, 2 flint, 15 bread, 23 water, 18 berries, and 1 coarse thread went into the box's 6 slots, and storing them cleared 6 spaces in my inventory at a stroke. I dropped the level 1 bait into a slot, took the fishing rod and fish basket, and walked to the edge of the island again. The channel had turned grim while I worked. Someone had noticed the player count, alarmed that in just an hour it had fallen by over 500, and asking whether everyone was truly in such danger. Another shrugged it off. 19.5 billion players and a few hundred dead, and asked whether that was even a lot. A third did the arithmetic. Over 500 in an hour and a half, about 400 in an hour, 10,000 a day, and a fourth ran it further. 10,000 a day against 19.5 billion players, come into nearly 2 million days, and asked again whether that was a lot. A fifth cut through it, pointing out that everyone had called this just the beginning, and people were already dying, and asking the ones who said it was nothing whether they truly believed only others would die. As I cast my line, the whole feed slid into a debate about the dying, no one knowing anyone else, and with only one message to spend, people were saying things they might never have said otherwise. Some argued daytime should be easy to defend, and that a death count this high during the novice period was already bad. Others said death was simply the point. The game had announced from the start that letting players die was its goal, and gradually someone raised the question of why players had been dragged in at all, the topic twisting through one turn after another while I fished. Fishing successful. Small green fish +1. Fishing experience +1. A finger-length fish flopped around in the grass basket, and though it kept thrashing, the level 1 basket kept any caught fish, shrimp, or crab alive for 24 hours, so it was not going anywhere. The small green fish was a level 1 marine creature, edible as food or processed into bait. I reeled in, attached fresh bait, switched to the map to confirm my island was not under attack, and cast again. This time the bait had barely been under a minute before the float plunged hard, the water shaking violently. A big fish. I grabbed the rod, ignored every notion about playing a big catch slow, and flipped the thing straight onto the island. A koi over a meter long, red and black and white, hit the ground and refused the fish basket, jumping in place and gearing up to come at me instead. The panel named it a level 2 koi, health 500, with a chance to bite during fishing, and killing it granted 1 level 2 koi treasure chest. A koi, a special creature that dropped a treasure chest on death, and even one of those could surface in my sea. I stood with my wooden stick and tapped to upgrade gathering on the spot. Combat power +1 more feeding into the stick in my hand, and swung down at the fish's head. My 8 combat power plus the 1 attack from the weapon halved its 500 health in a single strike, and before the koi could leap up, the second strike landed in the same spot and cleared the bar. 2 consecutive hits to the head, 500 health gone, the way a fishmonger at a market does it. Because to kill a fish, you strike the head. Killed level 2 koi, hunting experience +5, fishing experience +5. Level 2 koi treasure chest +1. The health bar emptied, and the koi left no corpse, only a square half-meter high treasure chest sitting on the ground. I set down the stick and rubbed my hands together, hoping this koi would earn its reputation for luck. I crouched, reached out, and the lid of the chest pushed open, a burst of colorful light flying out as a book dropped into my inventory. Opened the level 2 koi treasure chest. The panel said, Obtained Cultivation Skill Book, Body Strengthening Technique. A cultivation skill book. I stayed crouched while the emptied chest vanished, hardly believing I had actually pulled a cultivation skill book. I put away my fishing rod and creel first, walked back to the front of the house, and only once my things were stowed did I take the book out to examine it. It was 20 centimeters long and 30 wide, just a few thin pages, the cover reading Body Strengthening Technique, a skill book that required cultivation to achieve the effect of self-enhancement. The moment I reached out to lift the cover, the book broke into light and dispersed. Learned cultivation type skill, body strengthening technique. A new skill category appeared in my personal information, and clicking it open showed me the details. Body strengthening technique was a continuous enhancement skill that required completing a full set of standard body strengthening training to gain self-enhancement. The base effect granting combat power plus 0.01 for each completion. So completing the cultivation 100 times added a full point of combat power. And I thought rather well of a method like that, because even at 1/100th of a point per set, the skill carried no upper limit at all. Resources on the island were limited, and since I could not go diving into the sea to hunt for supplies, the empty hours had so far gone to browsing the chat channel. Now I had a way to fill them. The weed and small trees still had over half an hour before they could be gathered, so I stood in the clearing beside the house and gave it a try. Following the standard movements the skill demonstrated, I managed the first 2 passably, and on the third, I locked up completely as my inner thigh cramped. 108 movements, and I wondered whether I would finish them all today. After a short recovery, I let out a breath and pushed through the third, watched the progress bar in the skill prompt light up, and moved on to the fourth. The 108 movements had to be done in order, every single one to standard, and the difficulty was genuinely high. The one mercy was that I could pause to do other things, since as long as no movement sat more than an hour apart, I would not have to start over. My pace was crawling, so slow I looked like I was lagging, adjusting and readjusting, and it was 1:45 before I had managed only 6. Sore, aching, tingling, numb, exactly what I would expect from a training technique. I grabbed the felling axe and walked toward the small trees, now ready to gather, shaking my arms to throw off the numbness. Before the cultivation technique, my 3 points of combat power had all come from leveling gathering, which raised the stat directly, and back then I had only watched the numbers shift in my info, and felt the strength through running, jumping, punching, and kicking. Both methods improved me, but the feeling off the cultivation technique was far stronger. After a stretch of chopping, I had 43 wood and 11 branches from the 4 small trees, and the weed across the 5 plots was sparse this round. Only 46, all of it gathered in under 5 minutes for exactly 100 gathering experience. With gathering done, I checked my inventory and found 2 bait left, so I used the small blue fish in my creel to craft 1 more for 3. The fishing rod had 5 durability, and I decided to spend these 3 bait now, since carrying different types of bait was eating too much space. Before fishing, I did not forget to complete the 7th training movement, then sat down with the rod and started to fish, needing to stay calm for it, which left me browsing the channel once again. I locked onto the points, scrolling up the moment I opened it. Someone shrugged off a death, saying that since the 2 had gone for a duel, dying on the stage was their own fault. Another corrected it, that the duel standard was combat but the man had committed murder, and that maybe neither side had fully understood the rules. A third scoffed that each person spent 10 ocean crystal stones to enter a fight and surely knew the rules, and that people only stop repeating themselves in chat because words cost money. Every 5 extra words a crystal, even under 5 words still counting as 1. The thread tallied the spenders, who had burned 4 crystals and who had burned 1, and then asked, half disgusted, why anyone would duel at all, whether they were tired of living, since Trade City was supposed to be for selling things, and here someone was selling his life. The topic rolled on, a few repeating player numbers suggesting those particular players had a fair store of crystal stones to spend. My attention had caught on the duel, and the death on the stage. Among the buildings of Trade City, there really was a training ground, not a single place but a massive structure holding many training areas and stages. As I fished and watched, someone soon reported that those two had dueled for nothing more than 1, looking at the other the wrong way on the street. No friends, no free chat, and yet a man could still lose his life over a dirty look, which I had to admit was really something. Everyone sat on their own island handling their own development, going to the trade market when they needed to buy, never able to so much as touch another player. And from everything I currently knew, the one place a person could actually interact with another was the training ground. The map on my pass showed its offerings included cooperative training as well as stage duels. But whether the training ground or the stage, a player had to pay ocean crystal stones to open a temporary, time-limited usage area. In a little over half an hour, I pulled 3 different things out of the sea, one after another, the panel calling each one a successful catch, and crediting a point of fishing experience along with the goods. The first was a small soil gift pack, and when I opened it, the thing handed me exactly 3 pieces of soil, which made the name honest if nothing else. The second was a level 1 supply crate, identical to the ones that spawned on the island on their own, packed with 6 soil, 12 stone, 8 wood, 8 weed, a loaf of bread, and a bottle of water. The third was the best of the lot, a food recipe, and when I read it, the panel laid out a dish called fish with scallion oil, a level 1 plate built from 1 level 1 fish, 1 cooking oil, and 1 scallion, granting recovery speed plus 10% for 10 minutes. The catch was that I had never seen cooking oil or scallion anywhere, not on my island and not in the trade market stalls. A recipe with no way to make the ingredients was just a slip of paper for now, so I learned it anyway and set the whole idea aside. I put the fishing rod away and went back to the open ground beside the house, because my real plan for the day was to get through all 108 movements of the body strengthening technique at least once. It was brutal. Just adjusting my posture for a single movement ate so much of my stamina that after 5 or 6 I had to stop and rest, my legs shaking under me. I pulled out a jam-filled bread and chewed at it slowly. The bread's soft enough, but my whole body's so tired that even my jaw wanted to quit, my arms and legs already done. I took 16 berries, worked them into 4 portions of jam, added 4 loaves of bread, and made 4 more jam-filled breads at the food table, stowing 3 and keeping 1 in hand with a bottle of water as I leaned against the wall and looked out at the far line of the horizon. When the bread was gone and the bottle drained and refreshed itself out of existence, I stood back up. Past 3:20 in the afternoon, so the 9 reinforced plots were due for another round of gathering. I weeded and felled the small trees, then kept working through the cultivation movements one at a time in between. And after 5 in the evening, a fresh wave of growth came up to gather until 6 on the dot, when the system told me the island resources had refreshed. A level 2 supply crate spawned right under my foot the instant the refresh hit. I was mid-movement, balanced on one leg with the other dragged almost to the standard angle, when a box simply appeared beneath me and nearly put me on the ground. I hopped to catch my balance, swore at nothing in particular under my breath, and squatted to crack the thing open. It gave me 9 ocean crystal stones, a felling axe, 3 iron ore, 29 soil, 58 stone, 41 wood, 39 weed, 5 bread, and 2 water, all of it pouring straight into my inventory. 3 crates had spawned with this refresh, 1 level 1 and 2 level 2. The level 1 was the usual basic spread with the quantities nudged around and nothing new in it. But the second level 2, the one out at the edge, made my eyes light up, because it carried 10 ocean crystal stones, 5 cabbage seeds, and a level 1 pickaxe crafting recipe sitting on top of its soil and stone and wood. Crystal stones, seeds, and a recipe in one box. My luck, it seemed, was holding. I checked my panel and read it as my own situation rather than a wall of fields. I was Island Master number 9911, Combat Power 8, with hunting at level 0, fishing at level 0, gathering at level 3, and most of the way to its next jump, and planting still at flat 0. My island ran 90 square meters, 9 of them reinforced to level 1, with a level 1 wooden shack on it. My 12 inventory slots held the teleport pass, 38 crystal stones, the cabbage seeds, iron ore, soil stone, a heap of wood, an even bigger heap of weed, sawdust, branch, and the felling axe, and I still wore the novice vest, novice shorts, and my level 1 straw sandals. I stowed the haul, dropped the bread and water into the storage chest, and learned the level 1 pickaxe recipe on the spot. It wanted a fair bit of iron ore, so I dug out the 5 iron ore I had saved earlier. Once my slots were tidy, I went and pulled the weeds and felled the trees that had grown back in the plots, banking another 105 gathering experience along with 35 wood, 8 branches, and 62 weed, then hurried back to stand straight and push through the next cultivation movement. That bought me an hour of rest. I opened the island interface and tapped area expansion, hoping privately to time it so I caught an extra wave of refresh. I had been trying to clear every plot the moment its plants matured, because during a scheduled refresh, a plot would turn its contents into gatherable goods, whether it was empty or only just sprouting. So an empty plot was a wasted plot. People in the chat channel had said that an ore pile left in a plot with no pickaxe to mine it would still be sitting there after the refresh, unchanged, and someone had supposedly proved it by scratching an axe mark on a pile and finding the same mark there after the next window. I set the expansion patches on the map 10 times in a row, pushing the island out to 100 square meters. The moment the area hit that number, light flickered across the water all around the edge, and a notification told me my island had reached 100 square meters and opened a new chapter, that my efforts would eventually be rewarded, and that a reward pack had been issued. The pack dropped into the last open slot of my inventory, and the island itself began to change under me. Seawater washed over the foundation stones at the rim, and the ring of square stacked stones that had looked like a blocky body parked on the surface sank and spread at its edges, high at the center now and low around the perimeter. The outer stones lay flush with the water, and now and then a ripple crawled up onto the shore on the wind, held a moment, and slid back. Same size, but it finally looked like a real island instead of a hollow box floating on the sea. The next morning, the panel told me what the change had bought me, naming the place an extremely barren micro-island, 100 square meters total, 64 of them island land, and 36 of them barren beach. From utterly barren to extremely barren, I thought, standing in the center looking at the 9 plots that had not refreshed at all, which meant I had been overthinking the timing earlier. No real loss, since I would have to gather the ground sooner or later anyway, and the island's description had crept up a notch in the bargain. More than that, a new stage had opened, because a beach had finally appeared, and the panel was blunt about it. Only an island with a beach truly counts as an island. The beach came labeled as barren, the marine life carried in by the tide having no interest at all in a weedless stretch of sand. Reinforcing it was a different recipe from island reinforcement. 1 cubic meter wanting 2 turf, 5 pebbles and 5 sawdust, and turf and pebbles I had to make myself. 50 weed processed down into a single unit of turf, and 5 stone pressed into 1 unit of pebbles, both quick jobs at the processing table. Curious how much 1 unit actually came to, I processed both with my bag already full, so the 2 semi-finished piles sat on the ground beside me. A pile of pebbles was about the size of a single keystone, and a turf squeezed out of 50 weed came to maybe half a meter square, tougher than the straw mat on my bed even though, being a semi-finished material rather than a household item, it carried no buff. The math was steep, 2 turf needing 100 weed and 5 pebbles needing 25 stone, but I had the materials, so I picked a spot and ran the beach reinforcement. The panel named the result a level 1 reinforced beach, a barren stretch with only a little turf and gravel, and noted that perhaps a level 1 marine creature might be willing to crawl up for a look now. I walked over to the 1 CT patch, half turf and half gravel, the look of it already a real improvement on the bare sand, and as if on cue, a small shrimp washed up on a wave, stopped on the turf, and burrowed in with a few flicks of its tail. I could see it shifting around under the turf, treating the spot as a temporary nest. The panel read it as a level 1 small shrimp, health 50, a marine creature with a stay duration of just under 4 hours ticking down. Creatures that washed up on the beach like this would not attack the island, but each one carried a clock, and if I left it too long, it would simply return to the sea when the time ran out. To me, this 3 centimeter small shrimp was 1 unit of bait plus 1 point of hunting experience, and when no actual attackers were coming, small shrimp and small fish and small crab were the cleanest way to stack hunting. I crouched, quick with my hands, pinched the small shrimp by the head, and crushed it between my fingers, since 50 health was only health and meant nothing for defense. The panel loved the kill and the experience, and I carried the ruined small shrimp to the processing table, where the bait it made still looked like a small shrimp. I left the bait sitting on the table without taking it out, since the single processing slot had nothing else to do, and turned my attention back to reinforcing real soil I could gather on. I had plenty of material and no plan to expand further, so I reinforced 8 plots straight, bringing the reinforced ground to 17 plots laid out in 3 rows of 6, 6, and 5. A little past 10 past 6 in the evening, with nothing sprouted yet, I stood off to the side and went back to stretching and working through the technique. A few movements, a few minutes of rest, then a few more. My stamina drained fast and my hunger came on faster, and by not quite 10 at night, I was uncomfortably empty and ate 2 more jam-filled breads. Starting around the 90th of the 108 movements, my whole body was one long ache, and I gritted through the last of them just before midnight. The panel crediting 1 full practice of the body strengthening technique in combat power plus 0.01. 1/100th of a point. My personal information only displayed whole numbers, so it still read combat power 8, unchanged, but it would not stay 8 for long. In between movements, I had harvested every plot as it came due, once around 750 and again around 940, and with 17 plots the materials and experience ran far higher than before. With 5 minutes left to midnight, I finally sat down on the dirt to rest, having pulled 216 wood, 59 branches, and 311 weed across 3 harvests, for 586 gathering experience. In a day and a half, gathering had clearly been the easiest of everything to grind, and the bar told me as much. Sitting full again at level 3. I tapped level up. Gathering rose to level 4, combat power +1, the bar resetting low into its new ceiling, and my combat power climbed to 9, almost double what I had started with. Sitting there looking up at the risen moon, it struck me how fast this day and a half had gone. Then a less dignified problem arrived. I had been quietly admiring my own progress while waiting on the midnight refresh, when my stomach reminded me that eating that much had consequences, and there was no toilet anywhere on 100 square meters of barren rock. After a conflicted look around at all that open ground, I crafted 4 fences and stood them up north of the house as a makeshift latrine, used weed for the obvious purpose, dealt with the matter, and came back around to the front. Midnight had hit and the resources had refreshed, and when I checked the map I felt a little sheepish about how much I had grown. 5 supply crates this time, 2 level 1 and 3 level 2, normal enough for an island that had grown into a new chapter. The 17 plots held 5 small trees, 6 patches of weed, and 6 ore piles. All normal. The reinforced beach showed 1 small crab marker and 2 small shrimp markers. No surprise there. But inside the fence patch behind my house, the map flagged 1 unit of level 2 fertilizer, which had already turned itself into a loose pile of organic manure by the time I walked over to look. The panel told me that 1 unit of this fertilizer, mixed with 1 soil and 5 sawdust, would produce level 2 soil. So now I knew where level 2 soil came from. The route to that knowledge had required some strength of character, and I decided this counted as an unexpected harvest, even if I would rather not dwell on how I had earned it. I ignored the pile of manure for the moment, and walked the small patch of beach first, catching 1 crab and 2 shrimp for 3 hunting experience, before coming back to the house. The level 1 pickaxe wanted 10 wood and 5 iron ore, easy enough since I had iron ore saved, so I set it crafting on its 3-minute timer and turned around to pull weed. The 6 plots gave a generous 71 stalks this time. The 5 small trees yielded 49 wood and 12 branches when felled, and by the time I had cleared the lot, the pickaxe was ready to take out and use. Level 1 felling and mining tools both carried 100 durability, every normal use costing somewhere between 1 and 3 points. Random but also tied to how carefully a person worked. When I chopped a tree, I made sure the axe landed in the same notch every swing, which kept the loss to 1 point a stroke. The ore piles were the same, big chunks of stone stuck together with the joints between them plainly visible, and prying at those joints with the pickaxe lost only 1 durability a pry. I had never tried slamming the pickaxe straight into a solid block of stone, but I could guess that would be a far less pleasant experience for me and the tool both. I worked the pile for a while, and by 1/4 midnight the 17 plots were cleared again, paying out 68 stone and 6 more iron ore, and with the gathering across all of them I banked 230 experience. With the resources processed, I finally started opening the 5 supply crates one at a time, and the haul was rich enough that I felt lucky again. Across all 5 I pulled 18 ocean crystal stones, 2 felling axes, 4 flint, 5 ore, 104 soil, 167 stone, 199 wood, and 195 weed, plus 3 jam-filled breads, 5 loaves of bread, 6 bottles of water, and 8 berries, all of it stuff I had seen before. The real prizes were 2 recipes. The first was a food processing recipe for garlic shrimp, 1 garlic, and 1 seasoning, making a level 1 dish that granted recovery speed plus 10% and dexterity plus 1 for 10 minutes. Garlic shrimp then, and beyond the recovery, the dexterity attribute caught my eye. My cultivation had been so punishing that I had started blaming my dexterity for it, since all those movements stretched my tendons and muscles to the point of numbness, and a dish that raised dexterity might be exactly what made the training survivable. The second recipe was a level 2 tool, a planting shovel, 8 iron ore and 1 wood for a tool with 10 durability that could perform planting operations. I had been quietly dreading planting as some manual chore, so the shovel made me feel like things were looking up, and I set it crafting on a 3-minute timer. While that cooked, I tidied up, grinding all 102 of my branches into sawdust to free a slot, then took out the shovel, a 1/2-meter wooden handle with an iron tip, and crafted a storage box. I carried the shovel and a flower pot over, scooped the manure into the pot, added a portion of soil, and the panel updated to call it a flower pot filled with level 2 soil, ready to grow level 1 to level 2 plants. I took out a cabbage seed, read the first time planting tutorial on the pot, turned over a little soil in the center with a shovel, set the seed in, and covered it back over. The panel logged a successfully planted level 1 cabbage, planting experience +1, and told me the cabbage would mature in 3 hours. Current status water deprived. It needed watering and seawater would not do, only drinking water. I set down the shovel, which had 9 durability left, opened a bottle, and poured it slowly into the pot until the water deprived status finally cleared. The panel credited an effective watering, planting experience +1, and shaved 30 minutes off the cabbage's growth time, which I thought was a fair trade, since at least the effort paid back and the water was not wasted. I set the cabbage under the window by the door and put the new storage box beside it. It might not be the safest spot, but the house had no room left, 4 square meters with a bed eating nearly half, and a storage box claiming a full square meter that could not be stacked, and I was not about to block my own doorway. So I needed to reinforce. I checked the map before sleeping, confirmed no sea creatures were coming for me, and was about to head in for an hour and a half of rest when I caught sight of the 100-odd portions of soil in my inventory. And the rule held, if I had soil I had to use it, not only for better gathering but for the island's safety. While gathering earlier, I had read a chat post from someone whose home was ambushed in an unusual way. A long-range marine creature striking the foundation directly under his house and tearing several stones out from beneath it, dropping the whole wooden house he had labored to build straight into the sea. Others said those were creatures with special long-range skills, attacks that landed at random on any unreinforced patch, and the idea of suddenly falling into the ocean along with my house while I slept made me very serious about the ground underneath me. I reinforced 11 foundation stones, the 4 square meters under the house, and 7 more under the processing table area, because losing the house would be bad, and losing the processing table would be unthinkable. And after that, there was still 1 unreinforced spot left in the processing table area for later. Foundation reinforced. I told myself to sleep, went inside, and lay down. I never get long. And before my expected window of 1:30 to 2 in the morning, a notification jolted me upright. Marine creatures were attacking my island. I grabbed the wooden stick, went out the door, and saw a section of beach foundation stone flashing in the northeast corner of the map on the panel in front of me. By moonlight, I walked over and found the attackers. 3 sea worms wrecking the beach, each a couple centimeters thick and 4 or 5 long, like big spined maggots. The panel named them Level 1 sea worms, Health 200, their bristles carrying a small amount of paralyzing toxin, a common ocean creature that excelled at gnawing stone, and right now it thought my foundation tasted great. 1 swing of the wooden stick and the first sea worm died, dropping a sea worm skin straight into my inventory. These Level 1 attackers were only going for the foundation and had not touched me, though that was mostly because I gave them no chance. 2 more swings emptied the other 2, each turning into 1 point of experience and another sea worm skin. The panel calling the skin a Level 1 material usable in crafting and processing. I had no recipe for it, so I set the skins aside. The beach foundation stone was damaged, but not destroyed, and with my sleep ruined anyway, I went back inside, opened the island interface, and got to reinforcing. I burned 900 weed into 18 turf, 225 stone into 45 pebbles, and 2 wood into 4 more sawdust, then connected the freshly damaged spot to my earlier reinforced beach and hardened 9 new beach sections. I opened my personal information after and found little changed. Combat Power 9, the body strengthening technique listed as a reinforcement type skill. Hunting and fishing and planting all still crawling along while gathering led the pack at level 4. The island read 100 square meters total, 64 of it land with 28 reinforced. 36 of it beach with 10 reinforced, the level 1 wooden cabin standing on it. My slots held the pass, 56 crystal stones, cabbage seeds, a single iron ore, 2 soil, 50 stone, 946 wood, 55 weed, 1 sawdust, and 2 felling axes with the wooden stick now in my equipment beside the novice set. I put the stick away and checked the clock. Of the 17 plots that grew gatherable resources, the earliest still needed over 40 minutes before it would mature, so I went back in and lay down. Half an hour of nap and I was up again, because the next harvest was due in about 10 minutes and oversleeping it would waste the window. I opened the map, saw nothing had happened, and flipped to the chat channel to read while I waited. Plenty of players were on their 2nd or 3rd posts now. 1 ocean crystal stone buying 5 characters, which to the lucky ones was nothing, and there was real entertainment in watching people spend a single stone to roast or flatter a stranger over something funny. 1 single-digit island master had posted that someone was, in his verified opinion, an idiot, and I recognized the handle, number 7, who I had seen posting several 5-character lines the day before. Scrolling up for context, I found the joke. Someone had bragged about getting bored in the middle of the night and going for a swim, catching a few fish, beating them to death on shore with a wooden stick, and having a piece of equipment called a water-repelling shroud drop. Someone else had followed suit straight into the water and, before he could even swim back out, had a leg gnawed off by a sea creature, then crawled ashore demanding to know why the first man had set him up. A third pointed out that nobody could actually tell whether anyone was foolish enough to dive for loot or really got chewed up by fish, since nobody could see what anyone else looked like. Except you can see them, I thought. All you have to do is go to the trade city. Nobody had mentioned that yet, and I was not about to be the one to say it. I watched a while longer without finding any new topics, then went out when the weed matured, pulling each stalk and felling the small trees, clearing a way for 171 gathering experience, 88 weed, 92 wood, and 21 branches. My wood had piled up past the 1,000 mark, and since one slot capped at 999, it had split into one full slot and a second holding 39. With that done, I went back in and lay down again. It was 1:45 in the morning, and I could steal about 2 hours of sleep if I timed it right around the 6 o'clock refresh, but I could never fully let go of it. So in under 2 hours, I was up to pull weed and chop trees, then back down, then up again. To gather on schedule, my sleep could only come in pieces, and I had no idea when I would ever sleep through the night again. By 5:30, I was fully awake and done trying. I walked the reinforced beach first and picked up 5 small shrimp, 3 small crab, and 3 small green fish for 11 hunting experience, and 11 portions of bait material. Then pulled weed and chopped trees, and counting the 3 o'clock harvest, and I had banked 408 experience along with 189 weed, 154 wood, and 65 branches. With 11 minutes left to 6, I turned to rest and caught sight of the fully grown cabbage in the flower pot outside the window, and realized I had completely forgotten about it, so wrapped up in gathering and beach loot through the night that the vegetable I had planted with my own hands had slipped my mind entirely. The panel called it matured and ready, a very large cabbage, easily 7 or 8 caddies. I gripped it by the root and pulled it up, the harvested cabbage going straight into my inventory along with another point of gathering experience. Looking down at the flower pot, I saw its description had changed. Where it once read it could plant level 1 to level 2 plants, it now read level 1 only, with the remaining uses marked as 9 of 10. Probably, I thought, because the first thing I planted was level 1, the pot's count locked to a level 1 ratio. Though I would not know for sure how a level 2 planting displayed, until I had level 2 soil and a level 2 seed to test it with. At 6 on the dot, the morning refresh hit, and there was so much of it that even braced for it, I was dazzled by the dozens of markers crowding the map. The 17 plots I was used to, but the 10 reinforced beach patches now flashed with over 30 markers for small shrimp, small fish, and small crab all at once. And even knowing they were only bait and experience, I felt a flicker of excitement. On top of those, 5 supply crates had spawned, 1 level 1 in an open patch, and 4 level 2 scattered around the house and the beach. Crates would sit until the next refresh, so my urgent work was felling, mining, and weeding before the plants timed out, and by 6:15 I had finished, banking 78 weed, 41 wood, 9 branches, 68 stone, 8 iron ore, and 236 gathering experience. With the land cleared, I walked to the beach to gather seafood. The level 1 fish, shrimp, and crab all tiny and harmless. No weapon needed since I could pinch away their 50 health with my fingers. 28 of them in all, 1 hunting experience each. 28 in total when I had caught the lot. Then the crates. I cleared the beach first, since its resources could refresh any time, and opened the level 2 crate sitting there, which beyond the usual basics carried 1 special item. A level 2 fishing rod crafting recipe. Good stuff, I thought, pocketing the blueprint, and glanced out at the deep water before standing and walking back to the center of the island to open the rest. 3 level 2 crates and 1 level 1 were left. I opened the level 1 first, then the 3 level 2 one after another. Counting the beach crate, the morning's haul came to 89 soil, 289 wood, 232 weed, 6 jam-filled breads, 5 loaves of bread, 11 water, and 19 berries, all basic, alongside 26 ocean crystal stones, 13 iron ore, 2 flint, 2 pickaxes, and 1 felling axe, and 3 recipes, the level 2 fishing rod from before, a level 1 breeding pen, and a level 1 bonfire. The fishing rod recipe wanted 10 bamboo pole, 3 fine line, and 1 iron wire, all level 2, for a rod with 30 durability that could fish level 1 to level 3 ocean resources. The breeding pen wanted 100 each of wood, stone, and weed, 50 sawdust, and 10 soil for a 2x2 pen with 100 durability that could raise level 1 animals. The bonfire wanted 10 wood and 1 flint, and would burn 3 hours for light and warmth. I learned all 3, checked the materials at the processing table, and decided I either lacked what I needed or had no reason to craft them yet, so I went to put some items into my storage box. When I opened the box in the house, I saw the reward pack sitting there and nearly knocked myself on the head. I had been so busy tidying the night before that I had stuffed the 100 square meter advancement pack into storage and clean forgotten about it. Easily the most important reward I had earned. Bad sleep was rotting my brain. I sat by the bed, pinched the ribbon, and pulled it open. The Island 100 square meter advancement gift pack gave me 50 ocean crystal stones, 10 level 1 bait, 10 level 1 fertilizer, 10 level 1 flower pots, and a level 1 seed gift pack, exactly the things a player at this stage was desperate for. The seed gift pack opened into 5 kinds of seeds, 2 each, evenly split. Scallion, garlic, ginger, soybean, and peanut. Scallion, ginger, and garlic were seasonings, and soybeans and peanuts could be pressed into oil, which meant I was suddenly closer to that fish with scallion oil recipe than I had been. I went out front to plant them, packing 1 fertilizer and 1 soil into a flower pot that looked identical to a level 2 one from the outside. And the panel read it as a flower pot filled with level 1 soil, level 1 plants only. 2 of 2 uses. There it was, the difference laid out. A level 2 flower pot planting level 1 crops 10 times. The level 1 to level 2 ratio calculated at 5, so a level 2 crop could only be planted twice in a level 2 pot. I lined up the pots, poured in soil and fertilizer, and planted the new seeds one by one, the shovel running out of durability partway through, so I crafted a fresh planting shovel and finished the last pot. Every pot then flashed a water shortage icon, 10 pots meaning 10 bottles, which made the scarcity of water hit home all at once. Without a water purifier, seawater was useless, and relying only on the trickle from crates, when I needed 4 or 5 bottles a day myself and planting and breeding wanted more, was nowhere near enough. There was no help for it yet, since I had no purifier recipe, so I filed it under things to check in Trade City. Breeding raised its own problem, because I could build the pen but had no way to get cubs out of the sea, no fishing up chickens or ducks, which meant cubs would have to come from crates or the trade market too. I went to the beach to wash my hands in seawater, uncomfortable but not worth wasting drinking water on, ate a jam-filled bread and drank a bottle, and chewed over whether breeding was even worth it, since cubs needed feed and water through the whole rearing stage. 6:30 fed and watered, and the sun was already a pleasant 26 or 27 degrees of warmth that made a person lazy, so I picked something suitably lazy to do, which was fishing. I had 39 pieces of bait eating up bag space, so I took the coarse thread from storage, made a level 1 fishing rod, and carried my fish basket to the beach. Across a beach cornerstone, I sat cross-legged on the island side, baited the hook, and cast into the water. A level 1 rod had only 10 durability, and the one in my hand had just 1 point left, so it would die after this cast. And since I had only ever pulled the single portion of coarse thread, I knew I would have to make another storage box for the bait if no more thread turned up. I worked through the bait types I had fewest of first. 1 cast, 1 small crab, fairly stable, another portion of bait. The rod vanished as its durability hit 0. I pulled a new one, baited, and cast. The second gave a level 1 supply crate, the third something I had not seen before, level 1 seaweed, which the panel called an ocean plant usable as a raw material for feed or fertilizer. Another keeper. My luck ran good today, a catch almost every 5 minutes, and after several more casts, the rod down to 2 durability, a level 2 material pack came up worth 5 fishing experience, which opened into 3 iron ore and 3 coarse thread. There were other ways to get iron ore, but coarse thread only came from material packs and supply crates, and it was exactly what I needed most. I made fresh rods, packed 3 into my slots, and went back to it. Then the float plunged, and the panel logged a level 2 unknown fish fry, 5 fishing experience, and a sphere of water appeared straight in my inventory. I stared at it, unsure whether to call this a stroke of luck, the panel only telling me it was an unidentified item that required appraisal at the trade market appraisal office. An unknown item could be a windfall or a dud. I decided to check the appraisal price first and pay for it if I had the crystal stones, or set up a stall and trade it off if the price was too steep. I fished from 6:30 to 9:30 in the morning. I had started with 39 bait, and the small fish and shrimp and crab I caught along the way became more bait, so when the rods finally ran out, I still had 19 pieces left. 41 casts total had netted me only 2 level 2 items and 49 fishing experience. I stood, dropped the bait into a newly crafted 3rd storage cabinet, and went to clear weed and small trees from the land, having paused around 750 for a gathering round earlier, and the total experience came to 362, which topped gathering off at level 4 again. My other levels were still crawling, but gathering said it could rise, so I tapped it. Gathering hit level 5, combat power +1, putting me at 10 combat power, twice what I had walked in with, and I had arrived in this world at 11 in the morning the day before yesterday. Not even 2 full days gone. The feeling was genuinely excellent. With gathering done, I tidied the 3 storage cabinets, packed as many supplies as I could carry, and activated the teleport to Trade City, 10 ocean crystal stones deducted. My panel updated to combat power 10, gathering level 5, the rest of my levels unchanged. My island was still 100 square meters, with 64 of land and 36 of beach partly reinforced. The level 1 wooden cabin standing. My slots were a jumble of pass, crystal stones, cabbage seeds, iron ore, soil, stone, 2 full slots of wood, weed, branch, and the level 2 unknown fish fry, since I had no idea what a seller might want and had brought a bit of everything. Trade City was packed shoulder to shoulder the moment I arrived, but its rules guaranteed absolute safety, no physical contact possible, the system shoving any 2 players apart the instant they bumped, which I thought was simply wonderful. I came in at the central plaza, walked out of the crowd to the main gates of the trade market, and went straight inside to the appraisal area. Players came and going there, some with excited faces, some clearly furious, because appraisal was just spending crystal stones to gamble on an uncertain result, some winning and some losing, and I could not guess which way mine would break. The appraisal area opened into an enormous corridor that seemed to have no end, side corridors branching off both walls, each side corridor lined with 100 appraisal rooms. Above the entrance of each side corridor hung a count. Corridor number 1 reading 6 of 100, meaning 6 rooms in use, while corridor number 2 reads 0 of 100, with a wall marking that said corridor number 2 would only open once corridor number 1 passed 50 of 100 in use. It was the same all the way down, nothing else to see, so I turned back, entered corridor number 1, and stopped at the door of room number 3. Since rooms 1 and 2 were both taken, the players in them having no doubt picked numbers they considered lucky. A prompt at the door detected the one unidentified item in my inventory and named the appraisal fee. 100 ocean crystal stones, asking whether I wanted to enter the room, the door itself being the payment point. I confirmed, the crystal stones dropping from 112 to 12, and walked through the opening door. The appraisal room was a bit shabby, honestly worse kept than my own island. Not that I wanted to complain, but it was true. The door closed behind me and I stood in a private space, an empty 20 square meter barren island with a pile of rubble at its center, and a cluster of white light resting on it. The level 2 unknown fry wrapped inside that light. Without my doing anything, the white light flashed, and the result appeared, naming the thing a level 2 sea-patrolling octopus juvenile, a guardian type, free-range, carnivorous creature that matured upon reaching 1000 health, and noting that an adult sea-patrolling octopus could patrol the beach and scavenge. I felt the gain at once, a huge one because once this sea-patrolling octopus was raised, it could help guard the island. The juvenile was absurdly tiny, though no bigger than a small red bean even counting its 8 stubby little tentacles, and it was pink. I held out my hand and watched the little octopus crawl across my fingers, stared at it a moment, then tapped to leave the room as a 3-minute countdown appeared, and since room 3 was close, I was back at the appraisal area entrance in a dozen steps. A male player, my height but broader, jogged over and stuck out an arm to block me, asking whether the little thing in my hand was for sale. Not for sale, I told him, and kept walking. This was going to be the future patroller of my island, and raised well it would make my life easier. Because while beachcombing for small fish and shrimp and crab was fun now, everything had a limit, and doing it all day every day would burn the fun right out of it. The man fell into step beside me, guessing it was a breeding pet and offering 500 ocean crystal stones, warning me how much work it would be to feed once I took it home, since he had waited half the morning and I was only the second person to come out with a pet. Small as it was, juvenile size meant nothing as long as it was a pet. Not for sale, I said again. I am not much of a bargainer, naturally a little socially anxious, or maybe social aversion is the better word, and being trailed by a man staring at the little octopus on my finger with glowing eyes had me finding him annoying no matter how negotiable his tone. Then a tall, striking woman slid in from the side and spread her arms across my flank in a hugging posture, taunting the broad man, who she called number 7, asking why he was chasing a delicate young man instead of waiting for his fated pet, and inviting his collision even though no 2 players could actually touch. Number 7 went dark-faced at once, because this woman had twice tried to drag him to a romantic hotel, and he wanted no contact with her whatsoever, not even a hug across an air wall. He snapped at her to stop being so annoying, watching me slip away toward the stall area, his eyes nearly bulging, since this same woman had wrecked an earlier attempt of his to buy a pet too. She fired back that he clearly understood how annoying being chased felt, since he had been pestering some cute little girl and was now pestering this handsome young man, which made him worse than her. And at least she had not changed her mind, she was only staring at him. She tucked a stray hair behind her ear and grinned at him, eyes triumphant, doing it on purpose and not caring, because everyone wanted to buy a pet, herself included, but asking once was enough, and pestering a person who said no was just poor form. She was waiting on the next sale refresh anyway, and amusing herself in the meantime by popping up to needle number 7, whenever he needled someone else, since watching a handsome face change colors made the dead waiting time interesting. Number 7 protested that he was trying to buy it, not steal it, never once admitting that staring a person down to force a purchase was wrong, his logic being that someone might just sell for peace and quiet. The woman scoffed, asking whether having crystal stones made him special, since she had plenty too and had offered to buy him for 5 or 8,000, so why was he angry? And she reached toward his cheek with a grin, unable to touch him but close enough to make his skin crawl, especially since she had gone from inviting him out to flatly trying to purchase him. I had only caught a fragment of all this before walking into the stall area, so I never saw how it ended between the two of them. This trip I mainly wanted breedable animals, since with a breeding pen I could raise them for both food and fertilizer. And now that I had made peace with where manure came from, the anticipation of it could be quietly converted into planting experience. There were 4 categories of levels, each raising combat power when it leveled, but the experience required doubled every level, so I had to win the early levels as fast as I could. Seeds for planting, fertilizer for breeding, materials for a fishing rod. I looked at my slots and felt poor. The people waiting to buy pets clearly had piles of crystal stones and maybe even special items to boost a pet. Well, I had this one little octopus, and since I had not returned to my island yet, it was not in a rearing state and could only crawl around on my hand for fun. I had been through the stall area about 5 minutes, checking a few stalls with cubs, when I heard a voice hawking chicks, a male and female pair. Breedable, do not miss out. You will not be able to buy them if you do. A breedable pair of chicks. I followed the sound to a thin, petite girl about 1.5 meters tall, and standing over 1.80 meters myself, I made her look even smaller as I stopped at her stall. 250 ocean crystal stones each, the price read, which I could not afford and which seemed steep, though these two chicks were genuinely different from the few I had seen earlier, carrying the breedable tag, even if I did not know whether breeding meant once or many times. The panel named them a level 1 mother hen chick and a level 1 rooster chick, both breedable and both needing a breeding pen. The hen gaining the ability to lay eggs once grown and, raised alongside a breedable rooster, having a chance to produce hatchable eggs, the rooster boosting breeding effectiveness when raised with a hen. The girl had set both at 250 crystal stones each, and the number itself was correct, but where I came from that particular number carried a meaning that was a little unfriendly, so I will leave it there. She looked up, saw the price had scared me, and hurried to explain that the chicks had to be raised in a breeding pen, that she had no pen and could not find the recipe to craft one, which was why she was selling. I told her I had no crystal stones left, only some basic materials. I was interested in them precisely because so few others carried the breedable tag, which meant a flock if I raised them right, since surely a hen laying and hatching eggs would not stop at a single brood. She brightened and offered a trade in materials instead, lowering her voice to admit she had snatched the pair from the sales area, and that at the going market rate 20 crystal stones bought roughly 1,000 wood, so she would sell at that price. How was that? Her face went a little red as she said it, because she had originally marked the pair at 20 crystal stones and nobody had so much as glanced. She had grabbed the chicks meaning to try breeding, bought them in a rush without looking closely, and only after realized she had no pen. So she had come dejected to set up a stall and sat half an hour while people looked and walked off. And now that someone had finally stopped and confirmed the chicks could actually be raised, she was desperate to close the sale and get back to her island to fish. Weeding she could just manage, but chopping wood and mining wore out her stamina fast, and only fishing gave her the luck to keep trading for building materials. Change the price then, I told her, thinking of the wood for crystal stone exchanges I had seen at other stalls, the rate running somewhere between 48 and 52 wood per crystal stone. Whether she was lying about paying 20 crystal stones for the chicks did not matter to me. The conversion made buying the pair at 20 feel well worth it. She adjusted it, told me to take good care of them since a hint she had seen warned that poorly raised animals could fall sick, called the transaction complete, waved, and ran off. They can get sick, I noted, looking at the two chicks now in my slot, which said nothing about sickness, though since planting needed water it did not surprise me that raised animals had their own conditions. I had 421 wood left and kept browsing the nearby stalls. At a hosted stall I found someone selling a litter of 4 level 1 white rabbit cubs for 800 wood, wheat, or stone. 4 cubs for basic materials, and only 800 at that, and so she thinks I overpaid, I thought, sighing at why that girl had run off so cheerfully. I did not need to understand it, I just wanted them, so I spent 800 weed and bought the rabbit litter too, filling my slots again. It was not yet 11 and the weed and small trees back home had not matured, and an attack would still notify me in Trade City and only need a teleport to handle, so I kept walking and stopping. I found someone selling 10 portions of coarse thread at 20 wood, weed, or stone each. Reluctant to spend stone since I needed it for expansion and beach reinforcement, I asked the present stall owner to change it to 17 weed plus 3 wood per portion, so all 10 would swap cleanly into the one full slot the weed would empty, avoiding the storage fee that comes from buying one at a time into a full inventory. The tall, thin youth running it adjusted it right away. The trade went through, and neither of us being talkative, he just lowered his head and went back to shelving new items, putting up flint I had no use for. So I moved on. Before teleporting home, I found someone selling soil and spent 385 wood on 55 soil, since soil still came only from crates and fishing material packs and I badly needed it. With my slots now holding the pass, 12 crystal stones, cabbage seeds, iron ore, 10 coarse thread, a heap of soil, stone, 6 wood, branch, the rooster chick, the mother hen chick, and the rabbit litter, the stone and ore briefly useless, I walked out of the stall area and teleported back to my island from the market gate. A fruitful trip all around, the appraised sea patrolling octopus, the breedable rooster and hen, and the rabbit cubs and breedable ones were the real treasures. The girl might have felt that as long as she did not lose money she was fine, but to me the price had been dirt cheap. The instant I teleported home, the panel told me I was now raising a level 2 sea patrolling octopus juvenile, and could track its location on the island map, and that it was hungry, health 10, able for now to eat only powdered or liquid food. A free-range creature marker appeared, and when I opened it the little octopus was right at my toes, having gained its freedom the moment I arrived, crawling off my fingers down my body to my feet and scurrying across the ground. I had assumed it would prefer the water. I stepped back 2 careful paces, eyes locked on the pink speck, terrified that one wrong move of my foot would erase its tiny health bar, since relative to its size it moved alarmingly fast. I opened the storage box, took out one small shrimp bait, and rubbed it into powder in my palm, hoping it would not trigger a notification that the bait was damaged and gone, because if it did, I would have no idea what to feed this little one. I squatted, saw the pink thing chasing me, and spread my palm flat on the ground for it to climb up on its own. The little octopus paused, spun twice in place as if it had just understood, and crawled onto my palm. Only the fully pulverized parts of the powder were small enough for it to eat, the larger bits needing me to crush them finer before it could continue. And once it had finished, the powdered bait it pulled in its little tentacles, curled into a ball, and went still. I told it to stop running around and stay put, lifted it off my palm, and set it under the windowsill beside the flower pot of level 2 soil. With the little one settled and not trailing me for the moment, I finally got to work. The weed and trees were not due yet, so I harvested the 11 flower pot plants first. 1 cabbage, 5 or 6 caddies, 2 scallions, white stalks over half a meter, green leaves over a meter. Enough chopped scallion to last ages if I ever tried the processing table on them. 2 garlic plants giving bulbs of 8 even cloves plus 2 stalks of edible garlic scapes. 2 ginger plants over a caddy each. 2 soybean plants pulled by the roots straight into 2 small piles of soybeans. And 2 peanut plants whose shelled pods could serve as ingredients or be shelled further. With 6 kinds of ingredients harvested, my storage box was full again. So I planted 3 cabbage seeds in 3 level 1 flower pots and sorted what I had. 1 box for bait, 1 for bread and water and berries and other food, 1 for sawdust, pickaxe, flint, seaweed, iron ore, and the new coarse thread, the 6 fresh ingredients left sitting on the ground until I had wood for another box. I watered the 3 new cabbages, checked that the little octopus was still where I left it, and went to weed and chop trees. By 11:40 I had harvested 108 wood, 21 branches, and 81 weed, and spent 100 wood crafting a storage box for the ingredients. The cubs stayed in my slot for now, out of wood to do anything else. And unlike the little octopus, they sat in a completely static state in the inventory, the kind of creature that needed a designated breeding pen rather than a pet that lived freely on the island. The sea-patrolling octopus counted as a pet, a creature that could live freely alongside me, and once appraised and released from its water sphere, it could never go back into a slot, only be carried or held, which was exactly why players staked out the appraisal rooms, hoping to spot one and buy it the moment it came out. With the field harvested and nothing else pressing, I processed all my branches into sawdust to free space and reinforce the island again. 14 foundation stones at once with material to spare, which left only 22 square meters of land unreinforced, still showing the most basic foundation in its extremely barren state. The house and processing tables took up 12 square meters, so I moved the 11 flower pots and 3 storage boxes out onto the unreinforced ground, freeing 30 blocks for resource growth. Standing in the doorway looking at all that soil, in a good mood, I cradled the spherical little octopus and waited for the noon refresh. 30 blocks promising a lot of resources. Genuinely something to look forward to. Noon hit, light shimmered across the island, and 3 kinds of basic resource appeared on the cleared soil. Over 20 markers showed on the beach, and 5 supply crates spawned, all of them level 2. The little octopus rolled over, the curled pink ball stretching out a few tentacles that had already doubled in length, and started crawling again. It felt close to me thanks to the identity binding, but it only knew to come near. Not that a careless step from me could wipe out its health, which had risen from 10 to 20 after that one feeding. I told it I would go pick something fresh for it to eat, not daring to let a hungry little one head to the beach alone, or some wandering level 1 creature might swallow it, which would be tragic in the extreme. I curled my fingers to leave it a little gap to move in, carried it to the beach, grabbed a small shrimp still at 50 health, crushed it dead, stripped the head and shell, and opened my palm. I mashed the small shrimp meat into a paste beside the little octopus, and it wrapped itself around the ball of meat and ate it clean. And for every portion it finished, I caught and mashed another. The small shrimp were so small that, headless and shelled, each meat paste came to only 2 or 3 times the little octopus's own size. Yet after 5 portions in a row, it had grown to about the size of a soybean, and finally crawled up my arm to my shoulder before I could feed it more. At the seam of my loose beginner's tank top, it gripped the edge with a few tentacles, curled into a small ball, and went quiet and motionless again. How it ate all that, I had no idea, but it had clearly put away more than 10 times its own body weight. No point dwelling on it. I picked up the remaining small fish and small shrimp on the beach one at a time to process into bait later, banking another 27 hunting experience from the respawned creatures. Then went to pull weed. 30 plots could refresh resources now, and harvesting them made me genuinely happy. 11 weed plots for 131 weed, 7 small trees for 75 wood, and 18 branches, and 12 ore piles for 11 iron ore and 134 stone. 413 gathering experience in all, and I worked through it smiling. With the field cleared, the crates, 5 level 2 at once, the best spawn I had seen, and from the chat over the past few days I could roughly confirm my luck was good, maybe above average. As for the truly blessed, number 7 had once mentioned spawning 5 level 1 crates on his very first refresh. then 10 crates in a single night after expanding and reinforcing, and even opening a gift pack with 1,000 ocean crystal stones in it. So some people were simply possessed by impossible luck. It was not only him either. The players I had seen in the appraisal area today clearly sat on hundreds or thousands of crystal stones each. I had yet to even see a crystal stone gift pack, never mind scattered stones in every crate. And when stones did show, the count was usually under 10. I had finally scraped past 100 only for a single appraisal to leave me with 12. The first crate gave 10 ocean crystal stones, a cooking oil recipe, soil, stone, and the rest of the basics, and I learned the recipe gladly. The panel said 2 units of peanut, soybean, or similar could be processed into 1 cooking oil. The oils grade following the raw materials, no level restriction so long as the material's description said it could be refined into oil. The second crate held a pickaxe and flint, the third a felling axe and fishing rod, the fourth 8 crystal stones, coarse thread, and a felling axe. The fifth gave 12 crystal stones and a herbivore feed recipe, 5 units of plant material processing into 1 feed at the food processing table. The feeds grade following the material, and once I learned it I could see the processing and finished food were all made. Checking the recipe, the cabbage, soybeans, and peanuts in my warehouse all fell within range, though with fewer than 5 units of each it showed processing temporarily unavailable. Weeds are plants too, so why don't they count? I muttered, shaking my head, deciding their nutrient content was probably just too low to qualify as feed. The 5 level 2 crates were still a fine haul beyond the 2 no restriction recipes. 30 ocean crystal stones, 2 felling axes, a pickaxe, a fishing rod, 5 iron ore, 3 coarse thread, 2 flint plus 148 soil, 261 stone, 287 wood, 255 weed, 11 jam-filled breads, 6 loaves of bread, 11 water, and 27 berries. With so much to sort, I spent another 100 wood on a storage chest. After organizing, my slots held only 7 items: the pass, crystal stones, 2 garlic scapes, the wooden stick, and the felling axe, pickaxe and fishing rod that had each burned some durability and so could not stack with the full durability ones in storage. The garlic scapes I could eat directly, the chests being full anyway. The 5 chests ended up holding food in one, ores and basics in another, spare tools in the grass basket and seaweed and seaworm skins in a third, the 6 harvested ingredients in a fourth, and the bait alongside the rooster chick, mother hen chick, and rabbit litter in a fifth. The inventory was mostly sorted for now. I can reinforce another wave, I thought, looking over my materials. I had cubs, but no plan to build a breeding pen yet, since the cubs could sit static in storage and would only starve without feed, and maybe that little girl had sold hers even at a loss for exactly that reason, not wanting to watch them rot in her hands. No real conflict for me. Reinforcing the island was simply better. With material to spare, I reinforced 15 foundation stones, leaving only 7 land stones in their original state, then turned to the beach, where 1 turf needed 50 weed, and I had only managed 6 units, and 75 stone gave me 15 pebbles, enough to reinforce 3 beach blocks for now, the rest waiting on the afternoon's weed harvest. The island read 100 square meters, 64 of land with 57 reinforced, 36 of beach with 13 reinforced, the level 1 wooden cabin and the level 2 sea patrolling octopus juvenile both on it. Almost there, I thought, and if this luck held, I could reinforce the whole island by tonight. I checked the island info and started in on a loaf of bread in a great mood. The garlic scape's not improving the taste much, but after days of plain bread I wanted something different. It was only 12:35. I reached up and touched the little octopus on my shoulder, found it would not fall off, and decided I could leave it there without worry. A busy morning behind me, I could finally practice the technique in peace, and with yesterday's memory still fresh, the opening movements did not seem so bad. But when I had linked 3 of them perfectly, 1 per second, my legs went to jelly, and I dropped straight to the ground with my face twisted up. The muscles and bones I had worked screamed with a sour, numb, tingling heat. And resting after, I felt frustrated, but I understood it, because yesterday I had fully separated the movements with long pauses between, never grasping how terrifying the body-strengthening technique really was when run at speed. Haste makes waste, it has to be done step by step. I relaxed and lay flat for a few minutes, then crawled back up and set myself a temporary rule. 1 movement and then 2 minutes of rest, 3 or 4 if 2 was not enough, adjusting to my own body and not wrecking it at the start. I was just a mortal, and there was no soaring to the heavens off a few level-up points alone, so I consoled myself with the obvious truth that everything takes a process. The pink little octopus had woken an hour after stuffing itself and crawled straight back into my palm, hungry again, and I asked whether it was really starving so soon. There was no point arguing with a creature that could not understand me, since the moment it was full its health points climbed, which meant I had to keep feeding it the instant it asked, and feed it a little extra besides. I cradled the little fellow and carried it to the beach, where a few small shrimp and small fish had washed up over the last half hour, still with over 2 hours left on their departure countdowns, since I had been busy practicing my technique, and had no need to rush over and deal with them. The little octopus took the crushed fish and small shrimp meat I gave it and waved a tentacle at me, its appetite growing larger and larger. This time it put away 10 small fish and small shrimp and still was not full, so I carried it back to the house, crushed a dozen pieces of bait from the storage cabinet, and finally managed to fill its belly. Fed and watered, it climbed back up to my shoulder, found a rough edge on my clothes, curled into a tight ball, and fell asleep again. I looked at the pink thing hanging there, and asked whether an octopus did not need water because it suddenly struck me that this little octopus did not seem to care for water at all. At first I had been afraid it would be eaten by fish, shrimp, or crabs if it went near the sea, but a creature like this had to have its own instincts. Earlier at the beach I had laid my palm flat on the surface and let some seawater pool in it, and the little octopus had cared only about eating, indifferent to whether there was water around it or not. The panel read it as a level 2 sea patrolling octopus juvenile, resting, health 50, with no negative status tags at all, so it really did not need water. Either way, it did not matter, and once I was sure the little octopus would not slide off my shoulder, I went back to slowly running the movements of the skill, one by one, exactly as the demonstration showed. Over the last hour, I had kept adjusting and had settled, for the moment, on one movement every 2 minutes. 2 minutes felt long, but the skill demanded a recovery period for the body, and after testing it, I confirmed that 2 minutes would not let the training heat in my muscles die down. The pause also kept me from injuring myself or needing a long rest from sheer discomfort. And without distractions, I could manage about 30 movements an hour, which meant the full set would take no more than 4 hours. The only trouble was that the state I dropped into while doing them probably made me look like a man with some sort of nerve disorder. For the rest of the afternoon, that was exactly how I cultivated on my little island. I would run one training movement, stop, pull a few weeds, and once my body felt ready, I would run another standard movement, then stop and chop trees or pull more weed, occasionally striking a pose down on the beach. I picked up a small crab here and there, crushed it, dropped it into an inventory slot, then twisted my limbs into the next position. Lucky no one else is here, I thought, because anyone caught practicing this would look like a twisted madman. After finishing one whole set of the body strengthening technique in that movement-by-movement check-in fashion, I lay down on the bed to rest, marveling at how terrifying the afternoon's training had been. It was not just that I had a touch of social anxiety, because even a born social butterfly would die of embarrassment being watched doing this. There was no choice in it though. Cultivation could not stop. While I rested, I opened the chat channel and it was lively. Someone was challenging all the self-proclaimed lucky players to admit whether any of them had ever opened a skill book, and another player was stunned to learn skill books even existed in this world, having assumed it was all equipment. A third claimed to have fished one up at noon. A fourth said he had snatched a water arrow skill book from the trade market sales area for 5,000 ocean crystal stones, and the rest were lamenting that the sales area numbers were simply too big for them to afford anything. The whole feed agreed in the end that fishing up a skill book was nothing but pure luck, and the man who had bought the water arrow agreed too. Among all that I spotted player number 7 again. He was not the only lucky one out there, but I saw him constantly, and of everyone scrambling to make a name for themselves in the channel, he was without question the most relentless. From the way they talked, it was plain these lucky players were active in Trade City most of the time, timing their returns to their own islands only to open supply crates and upgrade. There was more to gather still, so once this harvest was done I could go fishing and then wait for 6 o'clock. When the map information showed me resources ready to gather, I got off the bed and went out to pull weed and chop trees. This afternoon, while practicing my technique, I had gathered 3 times as the resources matured, taking 415 wood, 62 branches, and 713 weeds in all, along with 1,190 gathering experience. It was over 1,000 points, yet a gathering level up now demanded 3,200, so I was still a fair way off. My hunting was nearly ready to level though, sitting at 98 of 100. The 3 cabbages had been harvested earlier in the afternoon, and with no seeds on hand for now, I stacked the flower pots and packed them away. With half an hour left until 6, I took out materials to upgrade the beach once more. The reinforcement wanted turf, pebbles, and sawdust, so I processed 700 weeds into 14 turf and ground 175 stones into 35 pebbles. With that done, the beach gained 7 more reinforced out of a 36 square meter beach, with 16 still to go, and without more materials I could only wait. The processing and reinforcement went quickly. Carrying the still sleeping little octopus, I walked to the edge of the beach, sat down, baited the hook, and cast my line. Each catch came back as a successful fishing, a small green fish or a small crab, and a point of fishing experience. And my speed was much faster now, at least for me. Each cast no more than 5 minutes, and the fastest barely half a minute before the float sank. A level 1 fishing rod carried 10 durability, and in less than half an hour I had worn one out, so I switched to a fresh rod and kept casting, though this one took longer. At exactly 6 in the evening, the panel told me the island resources had refreshed, supplies appearing rapidly, and right then the float on my rod sank hard. Another big fish. I gripped the rod and felt the dragging force in the water, certain I had hooked something large. The panel read it as a level 2 blackfish, health 2000, a carnivorous fish weighing about 98 pounds, a fairly common level 2 fish in the ocean. The blackfish had an enormous health pool, and being big and carnivorous, it fought hard, so I watched the rod's durability drop point by point. I glanced back at the fields on the island, then rode the force of the blackfish's struggle and swung it toward a spot where small trees grew in a tight cluster. The fish flew out and slammed into the ground with a heavy crash the instant it landed, and the durability of the rod in my hand was instantly used up. There was no time to grab my fish basket, so I took my only weapon, that half-meter wooden stick, ran over and started smashing it against the blackfish's head. As it thrashed, its health dropped, but only by double digits a hit, since the blackfish was large and thick-skinned. The small trees turned out resilient, and the blackfish flung into the gap between them, whipped its tail and knocked loose pieces of wood, but it stayed temporarily trapped. Practicing my skill really is useful, I thought. When the blackfish's health had dropped to a few hundred and it burst out from between the trees, I shifted my footing, naturally fell into one of my cultivation movements, and struck it right in the eye. The panel called it a weak point attack and a critical hit, health minus 520, then a second critical hit, health minus 312, and the kill notice followed. Hunting experience plus 5, 58 pounds of level 2 blackfish meat, 1 set of level 2 blackfish bone, and 8 units of level 2 blackfish skin. Killing a half-health blackfish with just 2 strikes, even granting its defense had dropped, along with its health, beat what I had expected, and I sat down gasping for breath. The wooden stick down to 9 durability, my silent grin growing wider. I had not planned any of it. I had simply turned to dodge the charge, and rather than waste a close-range opening, I struck on instinct. All along I had assumed this technique only strengthened the body, judging by its name and how it felt to practice, so finding it could feed straight into a real fight was a quiet welcome surprise. The little octopus had been jostled awake a step too late. It looked around, found nothing, but it could still sense how worn out I was sitting there hauling in air, and the conclusion it reached was simple. Its feeder was tired, so it would wait a little longer. And once I had rested, it would ask for food again. I reached out and caught it as it stretched its tentacles on my shoulder, holding it in my palm to check its state, and the panel read it as hungry, health 100, very hungry, but able to wait. The note at the end seemed to mean the little octopus understood I could not give it food right that second, so it did not mind sitting with an empty stomach while I rested. I did not fully follow that, but I told it that hungry meant eat, and pulled out a piece of blackfish meat. Each piece weighed 1 pound, solid good meat with no bones. The panel noting the level 2 blackfish meat had a slightly coarse texture, could be processed into food, and could be fed to carnivorous animals. The chunks came large, lacking the silky feel of more delicate fish, and I meant to tear off a small bit and crush it, but the little octopus took the whole piece as its meal. It was only about the size of a peanut, yet it scrambled onto the slab and spread all 8 tentacles to embrace it, each stretching to its full length of over 10 centimeters. If the meat was given to it, it would hold it and eat, and even if it could not hold all of it, it would still try. Can you even chew that, I wondered, but I let it be. My breathing settled after a few minutes while I watched it nibble the chunk bit by bit. First I crafted a new wooden stick, the old one nearly out of durability, then went to collect the wood the blackfish had scattered around the smashed small trees. Trees could come down by axe or by brute force, and the ones the fish had wrecked had all turned to materials on the ground, the only catch being that those gave no gathering experience. I felled the remaining trees, pulled the weeds, and swung the pickaxe one-handed into the ore piles, banking 265 wood, 42 branches, 214 weeds, 108 stones, and 12 iron ore. The wooden branches only paid 57 experience, since the rest had been destroyed rather than properly gathered, so this round netted just 439 gathering experience. My left hand kept supporting the little octopus through its blackfish meat, while my right finished the gathering, and afterward I went to the beach and dealt with the 32 level 1 small fish and shrimp scattered across 20 beach plots. Seeing it struggle with the heavy slab, I deshelled a small shrimp as I crushed it and set the meat beside its tentacles, but with the blackfish meat right there, the small shrimp was ignored. Once I had cleared the areas that could refresh new resources at any time, I started opening the supply crates one by one. Only 2 had refreshed this evening, a very small number. The blackfish probably ate a chunk of my luck, I told myself, refusing to admit it had simply turned bad. The first was a level 2 crate, and it gave 18 ocean crystal stones, an inventory slot expansion voucher worth 3 slots, 32 soil, 38 stone, 39 wood, 48 weed, 4 jam-filled bread, 10 berries, and 2 water. The inventory slot expansion voucher made my eyes light up. 3 slots at once, and I took it out and used it immediately, my inventory expanding to 15 slots. Someone in the channel had mentioned before that the sales area refreshed an inventory slot expansion voucher almost every cycle, the ones who could afford it snapping it up. the rest leaving it listed until the next refresh cleared it. The voucher was guaranteed to appear every time. The slot count it added varied, but its unit price was fixed at 1,000 ocean crystal stones per slot. The story went that a 100-slot voucher had once refreshed for 100,000 ocean crystal stones, and since no one could afford it, it sat listed for an hour, until the refresh wiped it away. The second crate was also a level 2, and as it opened my hands trembled twice. It gave 5 ocean crystal stones, a water resource purifier manufacturing recipe, a level 2 cotton cloth clothing manufacturing recipe, 35 soil, 42 stone, 35 wood, 4 weed, 2 bread, 4 berries, and 5 water. The little octopus, still gnawing on its slab of black fish meat in my left hand, stopped eating in confusion and tapped my palm twice with 2 small tentacles, as if asking what had happened. "Our family's luck is getting better and better, little guy," I told it with a grin, showing a full set of white teeth, and it was honestly a small miracle that without toothpaste or a toothbrush I had not grown any plaque or bad breath. My teeth were healthier than before, in fact. The little octopus had no idea what I had said, but it could tell my mood was good and that I had not run into danger, so it went back to eating in peace. "Are you sure you want to keep eating like this?" I asked it, and went to the beach, squatted down, washed my right hand, took out a jam-filled bread, and started dinner. I lifted my left hand to watch the little octopus, still clutching the black fish meat, the suckers on its tiny tentacles tearing off pieces and delivering them to its mouth bit by bit. Before, I had mashed the small shrimp and fish into paste for it, so it had never needed to work this hard, but now it seemed set on honing its own attack power, and flatly refused to let me help. After 2 jam-filled bread and a bottle of water, I went to the furniture processing table to check the materials for the water resource purifier. The purifier wanted 1,000 wood, 50 iron ore, and 10 flint, against which I had 1,130 wood, 40 iron ore, and 10 flint, the panel describing it as a distillation device into which I would pour impurity-free seawater to obtain a bottle of drinking water every 10 minutes. Durability 1,000. Able to purify 1,000 bottles. Distillation purification I had learned back in school, though conditions there had been thin, and the classroom packed, watching the teacher work the apparatus from across the room leaving me with little more than the knowledge that such a thing existed. I was short 10 iron ore for now and would deal with it once the materials were complete. I walked to the equipment processing table, and though I could not craft it yet, I wanted to see what the level 2 cotton cloth clothing took. The panel listed 10 level 2 cotton cloth and 5 level 2 cotton thread. A comfortable cotton top granting defense +5, recovery +5%, durability 100. I had neither, so I did not dwell on it. With both recipes set aside, I took out materials for island reinforcement, which wanted soil, weed, and sawdust per cubic meter. And with plenty on hand, I reinforced all 7 of the remaining initial island foundation stones on the land, at once. The panel now read my island is 100 square meters total, 64 of it island land all reinforced to level 1, 36 of it beach with 20 reinforced, the level 1 wooden hut, and the level 2 sea patrolling octopus juvenile on it. With all 64 square meters of land foundation reinforced, I felt instantly relieved, though the beach was not fully done, leaving 16 fragile corners for the moment. 16 blocks meant 1,600 weeds, and if my luck held tonight, I figured I could just about manage it. I checked the storage box and had a little over 300 weed left, enough for 3 beach blocks, and since reinforcing would refresh resources, I did not hesitate and reinforced them, spending 300 weeds, 75 stones, and 25 sawdust, which still left me 13 blocks short. "Keep eating slowly here," I told the little octopus, looking at it sitting in my left palm, where it had already gnawed off about half a pound of meat. I sighed, set both the meat and the octopus on the narrow wooden windowsill, and the little octopus raised its tentacles, paused its meal, and watched me with curiosity. When it saw I was only standing on the open ground in front of the house, raising my hands, kicking my legs, twisting my waist, it decided I was not abandoning it and went back to eating in peace. As I practiced, I kept a comfortable rhythm and worked through one movement after another while watching the bustle of the chat channel, where one message caught my eye. Someone was furious, telling whoever it was to come rob him on his own island if they had the nerve, insisting over and over that he was not selling, demanding to know what the other player kept asking him as they chased him across half the stall area. On its own, the message meant nothing, but the replies gave me a sense of déjà vu. Other players chimed in to ask whether the man being chased had appraised a pet, naming player number 7 as the shameless one hounding people in the appraisal area to buy their pets, calling him disgusting, agreeing that even though Trade City did not allow players to make contact, otherwise the pet might really have been stolen. Some joked that number 7 must be running a pet paradise on his island, or maybe he ate pets to absorb some kind of power. Maybe he had a swallowing evolution skill, and number 7 himself cut in to say his skill was reinforcing pets. That if a man would not sell, then he would not sell, and that he had not forced anyone to trade. The others shot back that chasing a person and asking hundreds of times was not going to change their mind. The messages scrolled fast, but I had a rough idea who the man I had met in the appraisal area was. buying pets, reinforcing them, then letting them guard the island and maybe even handle gathering and other tasks. That explained a lot. My own sea patrolling octopus, once it reached adulthood, could patrol the beach and pick up anything weaker than itself. And whatever I had, others surely had too, which was why some players could afford to stay in Trade City so long. That man, though, really was very annoying. While I watched the channel and practiced with slow, relaxed movements, a warning suddenly popped up, telling me marine life was attacking my island, and it was right in front of me. At the instant the notice appeared, I saw what the invader was. The panel read it as a level 3 mutated kelp, health 5000, an extremely violent marine plant after mutation, capable of entanglement, blood-sucking, and corrosion, highly aggressive toward living beings, and afraid of fire. The flailing kelp stood over 10 meters tall, with 4 or 5 blades, each blade half a meter wide unfurled, and right now it sat just outside my island, slapping against the outermost beach foundation stones. At least I could see its information, and it did not seem able to reach further inland, only chipping away at the edge bit by bit. I quickly lit a bonfire in the center of the island, right in front of my house, 10 wood and 1 flint making it. It was past 7 in the evening, and the surrounding plants had grown back, so I had to pull up all the unripe weed in that patch before I could place the fire. The panel said the bonfire would burn for 3 hours, providing light and warmth, that it went out in water, and that perhaps some creatures feared the heat. As it flared up, the mutated kelp, which had just destroyed 1 beach foundation stone, immediately stopped attacking, its blade spreading flat across the seawater. Afraid of fire, just as the panel said. Its orange-red light wrapped the 100-square-meter island, and the kelp played dead in the water. The effect was excellent, but the kelp was still there, only playing dead, not fleeing. I took out 2 blocks of soil and 5 stones and repaired the beach foundation stone it had destroyed. It could still move, but as long as the bonfire burned, it would not let any part of itself enter the firelight. I watched it twitch as I fixed the edge, thinking how to get rid of this danger. I had seen others post about being attacked by truly dangerous creatures, and back then, I was only a spectator. But now it was my own home's turn. A single slap from this kelp could destroy a level 1 reinforced beach foundation stone in 4 hits, and if I had not lit the fire so fast, the stones further inland would have been in danger too. Its attack power nothing like the level 1 sea crabs and sea worms from before. The little octopus came down from the windowsill, crawled to my feet, and climbed up my leg to my shoulder. That thing was afraid of fire. The warmth and dryness of the flame a fatal threat to the kelp. And not just the kelp, since most marine creatures feared fire, but the little octopus had no way to tell its feeder. I watched its tentacles wave and honestly could not work out what it meant, and the more I failed to understand, the more anxious it grew. It patted my shoulder a few times, crawled down to the ground, and, enduring the discomfort of the heat, stretched 2 tentacles toward the burning flames. "Are you crazy? You will be roasted into a dried octopus," I said, and grabbed it, retreating fast. The bonfire burned only within a certain range, sparing the weed and the surrounding plots, but the fact that the fire did not spread outward did not mean anything rushing into it would be safe. As that thought landed, I suddenly understood. The little octopus had been telling me that marine creatures fear fire. The kelp played dead the moment it spotted the firelight from afar, but if it were being roasted directly, then while it would never approach a flame on its own, I could find a way to put the kelp into the bonfire myself. "I have to admit you were smarter than me just now," I told it, "though the way you went about it was reckless. Then again, if you really could understand me, you would not have needed to demonstrate it at all." I poked the little octopus on its head, set it curled up on my shoulder, and squeezed it twice with my hand to let it know I had grasped its meaning. Once I was sure it would stay settled on my clothes, I checked the time, waited about 10 minutes, and went to collect the 7:30 batch of resources. The kelp was playing dead, and the bonfire could last 3 hours. After the gathering, I remembered my hunting experience had maxed out when I killed the black fish, and I had crushed some small fish and small shrimp since, so I clicked to upgrade Combat Power +1. The panel now read me as Island Master number 99111, Ye Hang Combat Power 11, with the body strengthening technique as an enhancement type skill. Hunting at level 1 with 35 of 200, fishing at level 0 with 65 of 100, gathering at level 5 with 2633 of 3200. And planting at level 0 with 29 of 100. My island held its 100 square meters, the level 1 wooden hut, and the level 2 sea patrolling octopus juvenile, my equipment the novice vest, novice shorts, level 1 straw sandals, and a level 1 fishing rod. Once I had tidied up, I looked at the open space and used my remaining 9 flints with some wood to craft more bonfires. I lit all 9, arranging them into a rectangle on the open ground in front of the house. 4 to the south, 4 to the north, and 3 each to the east and west, with 2 empty gaps left in the middle. On the island, bonfires counted as furniture items, so I could shift their positions through the map as long as they were not extinguished. Now I was certain of one thing. The mutated kelp had high destructive power, but the instant it saw firelight, it went into its play-dead state and would not resist at all. I shook the fishing rod in my hand to test the feel and began. The panel now showed the mutated kelp at health 5000, afraid of fire, playing dead, its old aggression tags gone. Standing inside the circle of bonfires, I cast my rod and with my increasingly proficient technique, hooked the edge of a kelp blade directly. The instant it was attacked, the underwater portion of the kelp kept its attack power and secreted a corrosive liquid to destroy my hook. But what I wanted was to lift it a little in the moment before the hook melted. I switched the rod from my right hand to my left, used my left to pull the edge of the kelp slightly out of the water, and cast a fresh rod with my right to snag the raised portion again. The part of the blade that left the water froze motionless under the intense firelight, showing no reaction even when hooked. The hooks dragged the blade slowly out of the sea, and as much as I pulled out, that much went into play dead mode. When one full blade lay on the island, the light and warmth of the 10 bonfires dried the sticky corrosive juice on it rapidly, and once that layer had hardened into white frost, I stepped forward, lifted the blade with a low-durability wooden stick, and clamped it with a second. Holding the 2 sticks, I flipped and rolled the blade over and over, winding it up without ever touching it, keeping it inside the warm firelight so it came up without resistance. Roll after roll, the dozen-meter blade wound into a thick bundle until I finally saw the stalk at its end. Ordinary kelp should have been a single piece, but this was mutated, a single stalk having grown over a dozen blades, the parts I had seen earlier only the exposed portion. Now that the stalk was out, the blades still soaking in the seawater were drawn up bit by bit from the stalk's position. I will just have to roast it slowly, I decided, and drag the coiled play-dead kelp into the 2 empty gaps in the middle of the bonfire ring. Once it was set in the clearing, I stepped out and stood a little further off to watch. It stayed in its play-dead state, and since the bonfires were not directly burning it, it did not move at all. After a few minutes, the liquid on its surface had dried to white frost, and as the moisture drained, its health finally began to drop. 10 instances of health -1 flashing at once roughly every 10 seconds with 10 bonfires roasting it together. After about half an hour, the kelp's health had been ground down by 2,000, leaving 3,000. I had to keep roasting it slow. Putting it straight into the fire would drop its health faster, but if this thing managed to attack me or my house, an outburst could kill me instantly, and I was genuinely afraid of dying. I did not want to gamble. As the flames worked it over, the level 3 mutated kelp lost moisture and the intervals between health drops shortened, and when its health fell to 2,000, it entered a berserk state, though its instinctive fear of fire still pinned it to the 2 safe gaps with no flames. An hour and a half later, the kill notice came at last. Hunting experience plus 25, 1 level 3 unknown mutated plant, and 10 units of level 3 corrosive powder. Once I was sure the kelp's health would keep falling and it could not escape, I had gone back to my interrupted training, stretching and twisting around the circle of bonfires, and with the kill now complete, the hunting experience still came boosted by the 5 times multiplier. A level 3 unknown mutated plant though. A level 2 unknown item costs 100 ocean crystal stones to appraise, and I was not sure whether a level 3 would run straight to 1,000, so for now I would keep it in a slot and find out the next time I visited the trade market. The level 3 corrosive powder, on the other hand, was clearly a good item. The panel called it a highly toxic material that could be added to food, each unit dropping the target 1,000 health and applying a corroded state for 10 seconds, during which the target lost 300 health per second and suffered weakness, burning pain and mental clouding. Looking at the corrosive powder, I could roughly grasp how vicious the mutated kelp's poison had been. Not bad, I thought, and sighed, since burning 2 fishing rods and 10 bonfires was already the minimum cost. The fires were lit, and there was no packing them up or pausing them unless I moved them to the beach to be put out by seawater. Since it was rare to have so many going at night, I set the little octopus back on the windowsill with a piece of black fish meat to nibble, and when it saw me walk into the middle of the bonfires, it waved its tentacles, flailed a little, then listlessly hugged the meat and went back to its meal. It understood. It did not like bonfires, but its feeder happened to love those dangerous things. Standing in the middle of the fires, feeling the warmth, I shortened the interval between my training sets by 10 seconds in that 2 square meter clearing, with the interruptions and the stops to pick up small shrimp and fish after the bonfires timed out and vanished. It was already 11:30 by the time I finished my 3rd training session. I quickly gathered all my resources, organized my inventory, and placed the materials into the storage box, harvesting in all 633 wood, 72 branches, and 718 weeds tonight. The island's land ran 64 square meters, the house taking up 4. The 4 processing tables 8, the 4 storage boxes outside the house another 4, and the stacked flower pots 2, which left 46 plots where resources could grow. Even though the earlier bonfires had stopped resources from growing on over a dozen square meters, it was still a fine haul. The panel read, hunting at level 1 with 143 of 200, fishing at level 0 with 65 of 100, gathering at level 5 with 3,361 of 3,200, and planting at level 0 with 29 of 100. Gathering is still the fastest to level, I thought. Hunting came from invading creatures in the beach. Fishing ate a great deal of time, and planting was stuck, since I had flower pots but no seeds. With Gathering's bar already full, I tapped it. Gathering rose to level 6. Combat power +1. The bar resetting to 161 of 6,400. and my combat power climbed to 12. 10 minutes left. Upgrade the beach again, I decided, and glanced at the channel, where many players who had stayed silent all day were posting now that midnight neared. All sorts of messages scrolling past and vanishing before they could be read. 10 minutes was enough. I quickly processed the turf, the pebbles, and turned the branches into sawdust. And with the materials ready, I reinforced the beach at the edge 8 more times before midnight. Counting the one block that had been destroyed and rebuilt, the beach now held 27 level 1 reinforced plots and 9 unreinforced ones. So I could wait for the resource refresh with peace of mind, and maybe even reinforce the whole beach once more before sleeping. "You can really eat, can't you?" I said, standing by the window and tapping the pink little octopus on a tentacle. "You do not even need to sleep now, you just digest while you eat." Before, it had slept after eating its fill, woken with more health, then gone back to eating, but now was not sleeping at all, only eating. And its health had already reached 285, climbing as it ate, a notice for max health +1 popping up every few minutes. It lifted the tentacle I had touched and moved it aside, as if telling me to leave it alone. "Eat slowly then," I told it. "Are you sure you do not need any water?" I set it in the slab of black fish meat into my left palm and carried it to the beach, dipped my right finger in some seawater, and held it next to the little octopus, not touching it directly, just to see whether it had not realized it needed water or truly had no interest. This time the little octopus understood me. It brought 2 tentacles over, touched my finger, and its suckers absorbed those few drops of seawater, though after drinking that bit it showed no real reaction and went straight back to eating meat. "Mix it up then," I told it. "Eat the sea fish, drink the seawater." I found it amusing, so I dipped my finger again and brought it over. And like that I fed it a bite and it drank a sip, never letting up on the meat, the rise in its max health no different for the water. And we played at this until the midnight refresh. At midnight the announcement came, plants and ore piles appearing rapidly on the island, the tags for small shrimp and fish flickering across the surrounding beach. 6 supply crates. Holding the little octopus in one hand, I went to open them all first. They gave 48 ocean crystal stones, 3 felling axes, 1 pickaxe, 2 fishing rods, 3 portions of coarse thread, 11 pieces of flint, 18 pieces of iron ore, 171 portions of soil, 318 stones, 344 wood, 402 weed, 17 bread, 32 berries, and 15 bottles of water. The basic supplies. Beyond those, I equipped a new piece of gear and learned 3 recipes. The gear was a pair of level 1 coarse cloth pants, defense +1, agility +1, recovery speed +1%, durability 100, and the moment I put them on, my original shorts vanished. Coarse as the cloth was, the pants were comfortable, maybe because after days in loose baggy shorts, any long pants felt better. The first recipe was carnivore feed production. 5 portions of meat ingredients into 1 portion of feed, the feed level following the raw material, almost identical to the herbivore feed recipe but for the swap from plants to meat. The second was a fruit juice drink, 3 portions of fruit and 1 of drinking water making juice, its level and effect following the fruit, the only difference from jam being the added water. The third recipe was the marine aquaculture pond, wanting 500 stones, 200 wood, and 50 soil, a 5x5x5 construction able to raise marine life belonging to the player, durability 1000. My first reaction was to look down at the little octopus in my left palm. It clearly liked seawater, but it was very weak right now and not ready for the beach. There was no rush to build the pond though, since it took 25 square meters, and on an island this small a water tank several times larger than my house would leave almost nowhere for resources to grow. After opening all the crates, I checked my materials, set the little octopus on the windowsill, and went out to pull weed, chop wood, and dig the ore piles, taking 166 weed, 113 wood, 18 branches, 228 stones, 21 pieces of iron ore, and 580 gathering experience. "Still not enough materials," I muttered. The beach reinforcement wanted turf, pebbles, and sawdust, and with 9 blocks left to do I only had enough for 6, so I reinforced what I could.